Well, we have a really exciting presenter today. We're going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is really an important topic right now. You can check out his website, Unfold the Soul. He's a national speaker. He's been all over the United States. Please join me in welcoming Ken Williams.
This message is for that school in your district. Educators, give me your poor kids, your pobrecito kids, your poor babies, your that school kids, your basement babies, your tier 5s, your bless his little heart, your bubble wrap babies, but he's good with his hands though, he just slow and low, your low lovelies, you're from that side of town kid. You had the brother, now we don't want to push him too hard, and your sweet and low kids. Give me all of them. The ones that you'd be embarrassed to admit bring you a little bit of relief when Miss Nancy comes to get them for pullout. Yes, and they all came through Ellis Island. Ooh, Miss Nancy. Children, straighten up. Miss Nancy's here. Miss Nancy's here for her group. Miss Nancy's here. Children, get the things together. Miss Nancy's group, take your coat and books. You're gonna get dismissed from there. Miss Nancy's here. Bring me all those kids. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna conduct a contest between any one of those kids I just named versus any one of you. Here's how it works. I'm gonna sit you down in the same room at separate tables. Then I'm gonna place before you 2 brand new, unused personal technology devices, unboxed, instructions removed. I'm gonna put a partition between you and you're gonna work individually for 15 minutes. The objective is to find out who between you two can explain more about the functionality of that brand new handheld device? How many functions, bells, and whistles can you find and list? The winner of the contest gets to stay in class and receive on-grade level core instruction taught at the highest level of the standard with scaffolding as appropriate. And the loser gets to spend some one-on-one time with Miss Nancy when she comes by to pick up her pull-out group that afternoon. Now, anytime my mother or 3 of my badass aunties wanted to tell you something you needed to hear but didn't want to hurt your feelings, they start the statement by saying, I don't mean no harm, but if I had to place my hard-earned money on who I thought was gonna win that bet, I don't mean no harm, but I'm gonna bet on Javier, Bethany, Michaela, Hunter, Maria, and Deshawn every time to win that contest. Because when Miss Nancy comes by that class that afternoon for her pull-out group, Miss Nancy's coming for you. I'd like you to take a minute in your, why don't we turn and form these small groups of 3 or more. Let's awkwardly do that right now, because I want you to talk in groups of 3 or more. So so then you turn to someone and then you just like, you're it, and and what I'd like you to do is just talk about what resonated with you from that video, whether it's something that you agree with or you want to push back on, and then in a couple of minutes, I'm going to call you back together, and I'm going to use this signal. I'm going to say, I'm going to invite you back. If you hear that, just tell someone, and then I want to hear from you about what resonated with you from that video. All right, so take a couple minutes, turn and talk about your thoughts there. All right, I'm gonna invite you back. And I'd love to hear a couple of thoughts from that first clip. Yeah, and do me a favor, tell me who you are and what your role is, and then let it rip. Thank you.
Christina, deaf and hard of hearing itinerant teacher. So we have a group of itinerants here, so we all kind of felt like we were Miss Nancy. Yeah, so it's
All right. I can understand more. Thank you.
We were saying that when you described each child, like all of us had that hit pop in our head,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
There's definitely some words that made us think instantly of that specific kid, whether it's this year or 15 years ago.
Sure. Sure, it's probably a name that goes along with every one of those labels at some point or not. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, when you take them all, then you have to bring them back all fixed.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Anyone else? Yes.
We also talked about, we knew who some of those teachers were that were, we could think of some teachers, they popped into our minds that were saying, oh, here's Miss Nancy, we're so happy she's here.
Yeah. With love in their hearts, right? Love in their hearts, come get them. I remember working with some kids who we knew more by their label than their name.
Hi, I'm Lisa from ISRC, and the first thing I thought about, there was a level of guilt, a feeling of guilt, like, was I that person when I had people working in a classroom to want to get rid of kids?
Yeah.
It was just a level of a feeling of, ooh.
I can appreciate that transparency. And listen, that's, I appreciate that level of transparency. And I can just hear from something's going on with my mic. It sounds really scratchy. Do better without it? Yeah, so, if I had a magic wand, that temporary feeling of guilt will kind of turn into like reflection and just have us think about what we do, what we say moving forward. That's all. Labels put a stink on kids. On people, period. But we're talking about students, and it often then guides our actions. And this is something that's so firmly entrenched in our work that I try to come up with ways to just kind of just rattle us a little bit, just to get us thinking. Yes. Do me a favor. Would you belt it out that way, and I'll hear you. Tell me who you are and what your role is.
My name is Peggy Jeffries, and I'm teacher of visually impaired.
And before you begin, your name and role. Thank you.
Hi. I just want to piggyback off what you said. I totally agree with that, because I find that once a child is labeled, it's hard for that label to be removed. And even if the child's behavior change, you still see that child as what's in your head. And I try not to fall into that when teachers say, oh, I say, you know what, let me just learn him for myself. I agree with that.
That's a great observation. I know enough brain science to make me dangerous, just like that much. But I do know this about labels. So if I said gifted and asked you to give me 5 bullets that fell below the gifted label, whatever they are, just have that in your head. And if I said low, and then you give me the 5 descriptors that fall in that, whatever it is, what happens is when we focus too much and lean into the label too much, our brain wraps around the 5. And then we miss the rest of the kid. That's why it causes harm on both ends. On the one end, the kids we consider low or struggling learner. So I do a lot of those videos. That's my way. That's my uneasy alliance with social media. Is I don't have to say anything. I'll just record a video and just post it, and then I can get out and be an introvert. But I have about 300 of those videos out there. They're all between 30 seconds and 2 minutes long, and I have one called Struggling Learner. And it basically goes like this. If I were 8 years old with my 54-year-old mind and you called me a struggling learner, my first thought would be, do I suck at everything? Do you see what I'm saying? No, but it's like struggling learner, it's like it's everything. It's labels take us from the mirror to the window. See, when I'm struggling with mixed fractions, you're thinking about ways to break through with me with mixed fractions. When I'm a struggling learner, you already set up to believe I'm on some level that I'm going to struggle doing it, less likely to challenge me. And so that's exactly what happens with labels. Even on the other end of it, with all the gifteds, the gifted kids, the gifteds. If I say that with disdain, it's probably because I had PTSD from first grade. My cousin's so tired of this story. We were in the same class, man, and we were working out a Steck Vaughn phonics book with the plaid cover. Some of you remember that. Others of you are like, Siri, what's But she got to leave first grade and work in book B, which was the blue cover. And I remember asking, like, can I work in book B? And they're like, your SRA scores aren't good enough. And I was like, but I want to try though. And so, but it happens on that end as well. So whatever you like, giving you 5 descriptors for gifted. And then we focus on them, and then the stink we put on them is they can do everything. They're super ambitious, they're self-starters, they're smart in every way, and then they end up having holes as well. So it's just best to teach Timmy. Had a principal called me, and I see your hand, and I see your hand. I had a principal call me the other week, and this principal's heart's in the right place. He wants it bad. He's working in rural Georgia, and he's like, Kim, we got our black boys are struggling. I don't know what to do. I need a tool. Our black boys are struggling. And I said, I'm not sure if you want the answer I'm going to give you, but I'll give you an answer. And he said, what is it? I said, stop teaching black boys. Stop teaching black boys. Teach Timmy. Because as soon as you put them in a subgroup, you put a stink on them. And I don't care what the subgroup is. Special ed. You know, we do it. You know this, right? You know this. Like I've talked with special educators. There could be 3,000 different things, like different things going on from like fine motor skills where I can't tie my shoe, but that's all I got going on, to severe and profound. You get what I'm saying? But when you put that tat on them, it's like our heads go somewhere else. Like it's a expectation diminisher, like automatic. And so I told them, stop teaching black boys. But the first thing I put on a screen, I had 5 black faces across the screen. I said, well, why are these boys a subgroup? These 5 boys from your school. I know there are a lot more, but tell me why. And he's like, well, you're black? I said, yeah. But what else? Because as soon as we make them a subgroup, we are saying that they've been impacted the exact same way all the way across the board. Even if you give me 5, you give me poor white boys and put them across the screen. You tell me every single one of them had the same experience, the same upbringing, the same trauma, the same adversity, all of that? No. But that's what happens. That's my next, I'm working on this thing. Like that. And what happens is we hand wring and we work hard and we scramble, and there's so much stuff like how to teach black boys and how to teach poor kids. And I was like, does that mean like, did anybody else grow up? I grew up broke. We weren't abject poverty, but we lived check to almost check. Like almost 1 month in the money, right? So the 5 of us make a subgroup, but what does that mean? What it means when we look at it, the optics, is that we are all, right, we all need Sudafed. Right? That'll do it. I just need more support at home. I had tons of support at home. My parents want something better than their parents. We moved to Queens, New York, and it was a struggle. My dad liked to play the numbers, and I'm not talking about the lottery. You know what I mean? And he was entrepreneurial minded and always looking for a hustle. Never trying to beat anybody, but maybe a shortcut here and there. And we just live. To me, broke is a condition. Poverty is like more of a, outside of the numbers, there's a mindset and there's a condition. But we just lump them. And so, but just like you said it beautifully, let me step back and get to know this kid a little more, right? Before that stink just descends on us with love. And so I'm glad it provoked your thinking. What are those our 2 teammates? Give me one? Yes.
I just wanted to say I completely understand where you're going with this. I've absolutely seen it, in years and years of teaching, but I think that the real disservice that we do is in the generalization, because every student is completely...
Yeah, there's no amplification. It's for that. No, you keep talking to it.
Okay. Is their own individual person.
That's right.
As we all know, we come at it to teach the student where the student is, and that's the way it should be. But we also have to encourage our parents to understand that a label
shouldn't be that generalization. A label should be scaffolding to help us better understand that student
That's
as a
right.
person. I mean, my own child is autistic, but to look at him, you would never know it. He doesn't have, he's labeled high functioning, whereas that label can be detrimental because,
That's
as we
right.
know, it's not a spectrum, or, it's not a linear spectrum. So what is most important is just addressing the child where they are, but I think we also need to realize where they may have deficits because.
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
What am I doing here today?
Yeah.
What am I doing here today? I mean, between, they've been peeking at my slides. Something's going on. We have one more teammate. Thank you. You know what, you have to, see, because this being recorded, so that mic, even though it feels crazy, it doesn't amplify, but it's for the camera. So you have to pretend that it's on.
My name is Missy.
But do me a favor, amplify enough so she can hear you
okay.
back there.
My name's Missy. I'm a speech path with DHH. We talked about how our own experiences are coloring our perception of students. We're like, a lot of us have only those kinds of students. And so maybe we'll get a report from someone who does not have that type of experience. And so this new kid, we are reading this and it looks like, whoa, this kid is down here and this is gonna be a real struggle, when in reality, he gets to us and oh, I've handled something like this before. this kid has a lot of strengths that his previous providers were not equipped to recognize and things like that.
Yes, thank you. Some just great insights. And so today we're gonna look at how to perhaps put some things in place that will take some of the pressure off of us trying to figure out who can and who can't. Because that's a heavy burden. That's a really heavy burden. So that's one. I'm going to introduce myself in a sec. Two, I revere and love educators. I really do. And that you're my classroom. For the past 15 years, I pour into the adults because I can't teach all the kids. I think if I could teach all the kids, we'd have no issues, but I can't teach all the kids. So I have to work with the adults who teach all the kids. That said, I think everyone has their place, just like there are people in our lives that we go to and we want to hear that we're amazing. And then the other people we go, when we hope to hear we're amazing, but they really tell us what we need to hear, like that person. I think there's someone for everyone out there. So, well, I'm never going to be in sessions where I'm never beating down educators, I'm never blaming, I'm just trying to help you move things out of your way to do what's best for kids. But maybe this is like a gremlin in my ear whispering that you should tell them this before you start, but I coach, that's the thing. So anybody coach sports? What sport? Soccer, right? So post-game, you got whenever the next day, you're reviewing what happened at the past game. I don't know. Best coaches I've met, they're gonna spend 10 minutes on what went well, and then we're gonna spend the other 50 minutes on how we can get better, right? So that's what I do, So I'm not the guy who's you're amazing, and everything you do is amazing. And no matter if you don't get any results, it's still amazing because you're amazing and amazing. Oh my God, you do God's work working with kids. You're amazing. I don't see how you do it. I could never teach because you're amazing and amazing and amazing. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? When I need that guy, I go to that guy or I pull the book off the shelf you're awesome and but I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that wants you to get results for the hard work you get. We work hard. I want results. Because short of that, anything short of results is a participation trophy, and I don't like those. And that's what it feels like sometimes. Did you get results? Nope. But you're still awesome. And no. And it's probably because there's a message out there that some kids can't learn. And so when people shower us with participation trophies, that's a way of telling us that we're doing charity work. And I have no interest in that. I have no interest in that as an educator, and the competitor in me definitely has no interest in that. None. Not even my kids. Playing a little church league, and they're 0-8. They come on with a trophy. They knew they would just come down to the basement. Where are we throwing this one? Hold the wings, all right? It's an overhead, like that. Or we'd bury it up to the wings, so just you see it out of the ground like this. Like they knew, I mean, come on, this is life. This is life. So, welcome to Ruthless Equity. My name is Ken Williams. It's an honor and pleasure to serve you today. A little bit about me. As was mentioned, I've been doing this work for about 15 years. I help schools and school leaders build a culture of equitable practice. And a lot of it is about, what's it called? I do the mega cognitive part of the work, like the thinking about the thinking. I want you to know why that template is valuable and why we should do the work. And then as you explore, when you need more tools, I can provide the tools, but I do not take a prescriptive approach to the work, which is hand you a packet of handouts with a bunch of templates and step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I want you to experience some things, and hopefully it'll spark the kind of curiosity. It's gonna validate some of the great work you're already doing, and maybe shine a light on some opportunities to get better. And I'm not into ambiguity at all. So I'm gonna knock the ambiguity out of equity, because on the one hand, I'm super excited that equity's on the tip of everyone's tongue these days. Because I've been doing equity work my entire career. So I'm a PLC zealot, and PLC's our equity work from day one. It's just never been emphasized, but in the time we're in right now, equity's on the tip of everyone's tongue, and that's wonderful. The flip side of that, and here comes your grumpy uncle, now cats were selling used cars last year, writing equity books, and equity's being pulled in 500 different directions and made to mean only things about race and ethnic culture. And while equity addresses those things, equity is for everyone, right? We build equitable practice and a culture of equity, it'll take care of everything. So we're gonna clear it up today. My company is Unfold the Soul, and my work revolves around these 3 big M's: mission, mindset, and method. And we'll touch on all of them today. Mission, mindset, and method. And another way to put this is bringing together the heart, the head, and the hands. So this morning we're going to explore like some of what's in your heart, and then figure out how to make sense of it up here, and then take it to the hands so we can make a difference. And then I'm sure I'm going to learn from you, because while universally these principles are the same, I can just tell the way you're answering questions. You have, a lot of you, very unique experience that I'm not familiar with, and I hope to learn from you today as well. That's my family. I'm the husband of 1, father of 2. It's the camera settings. Nobody, look, we have caked with makeup and foundation there, but that's not actually how we look. That looks like claymation. That's, yeah, husband of 1, father of 2, 2 young adult kids, and I'm a former classroom teacher, assistant principal, and school principal. I don't know, I just keep that picture up there all the time. It's my first class of students, man, 1992. God, Lord. I'm a grand teacher, like 100 times over. I know they're 39 now. You know what I mean? My wife tells me, I mean, she doesn't do what I do. I mean, I don't know if she just like comment and stuff, but anyway. She tells me when I show that picture and the audience goes, "Aw, it's about the kids." But I'm convinced it's about me because I'm looking, man, and just the trim waistline. Brother had hair, man. I had hair, baby. I did sideburns and stuff, man. I'm looking around and this cat back here, his head full of hair back there. I can see him at the barber. Take another inch off, just like hair fluttering everywhere. Reckless and cavalier with his haircuts. Got the full beard going. Just take another inch off. You'll learn. I used to do the same thing. I'm in my 50s, so every once in a while, like a hair will grow on my ear or my nose. I don't even pull them. I'm just like, cornrow it and curl it up. I'm not giving up any hairs anymore. Man, My wife's a healthy girl. She's all like, she exercises. I'm saying she exercises not for no reason, but nobody tells her to. You know what I mean? And I exercise when I go to the doctor and he says, you're gonna die if you don't start walking. So I do that, but man, back then I could eat anything. Now I'm in my 50s counting cashews, 1, 2. Baby, this one broken, can this count as 1? Can I just slide it over? It's just, that's my contact information. I'll give it to you again at the end. That QR code will take you to everything I do, but I will definitely put that up again. I'm on Twitter. I invite you to follow me at Unfold the Soul. And I'm the co-author of the bestseller Starting a Movement, contributing author to Beyond Conversations About Race. And my newest book just out in May. It's Ruthless Equity, and I think you have a copy of that. I'm super proud of it. I'm going to work out of it today. It is definitely unlike any book written for educators. And I know everybody says that, but I urge you to believe me. So it really is. I do a podcast on a weekly basis called the Bless His Heart Leadership Podcast. Drops on Wednesday mornings. This is season number 3. They're 10 to 15 minutes long. I kept a journal when I was a principal last time because I had a mentor who gifted me 2 big fat blank journals, and I hate writing. But she challenged me to journal my journey at this new school, which was the poorest performing school in the district and the poorest performing district in the greater Atlanta area. And so I go back to that journal, I read a page, uncut and uncensored. I'm just warning you now. Because I didn't write the journal to do a podcast, because there were no podcasts back then. But that's what I do. I read it, I reflect on how I screwed up back then, or maybe got something right, and kind of bring it forward. And again, we're going to work out of Ruthless Equity today. So clarity precedes competence. And do you have Post-its and stuff? Oh, you got those little pads. Very cool. So clarity precedes competence. And I'd like you to do me a quick favor. No pressure. No one's going to have to read anything out loud. No one will be called out. Nothing. But take your best shot at defining instructional equity in your own words. Don't look it up. Don't look it up. Define instructional equity in fewer than 2 sentences max. Do that now. Write it down though. Don't do it's in my head. Write it down. Another 30 seconds. No stress, nice and easy. It's all groovy, baby. All groovy, it's groovy. All right. Now, I'm going to ask you, with your definition in hand, to stand, find a partner, and face the partner. Now listen, just stare at each other until I give you the next direction. Don't share your responses yet. Stand, find a partner, face a partner. Just stand and find a partner, face a partner. Stand up, find a partner, face a partner. With your definition in hand. Stand, find a partner, face a partner. There's too much movement in this workshop. Stand, find a partner, face a partner. All right. Figure out very quickly just decide who's partner one and partner two, please. Partner one, partner two, partner one, partner two. All right? So, on the screen's a turn timer. Do I see some triads in the room? All right. I'm going to hit the start button, and when I hit it, partner one is going to have 11 seconds to share his or her definition. Don't change yours when you hear somebody else's. Every 11 seconds, a chime will go off. It'll be the next person's turn. And when all 2 or 3 turns are done, just remain standing for me. What questions do you have about this process? Just want you to read your definition. I'm only giving you 11 seconds because I don't want you to go into a whole diatribe about how you came to it. Just read the words and keep it pushing. All right, and go. All righty. So remain standing if you would. So remain standing. If you and your partners had the exact same definition, and by exact, I mean verbatim, not, girl, we're in the same ballpark. No. Verbatim, remain standing. Otherwise, thank you, teammate, and have a seat. All right, so look around at our human data and tell me what are the data telling us. Yes.
No two people have the same definition.
Yes. And what does that mean? What should that mean for us? What are the implications of that? Can't teach kids the same? It's not equal? You cannot achieve what you cannot define. And listen, I don't doubt that there are phenomenal definitions in the room. If we got 60 people in here and there's 60 awesome definitions, it still leaves us in a weakened position if they're all different. Can't achieve what you can't define, and I think that's one of the frustrations with equity work is that, again, it's been pulled in 1,000 different directions. So you'll walk out of here today with a definition, like concrete, as it relates to our work. Because that's all I'm interested in terms of equity, is what we need to do is we need to move the needle. Right? I'm not interested in having, I'll just shut up right there. I was about to mess up. Because you felt like family for a second, so I was about to. Like, black boys don't need you to learn rap music. Need you to treat them like they're gifted. Just like every other kid. Notice that? Like, so the other flip side of my question I've been asking lately is, I say, hey, listen, I'm a 4th grade teacher. I'm the team leader. I'm coming to represent the team. I got 37 white girls aren't learning. 37 white girls are not achieving. What should we do? So I already told you the answer, but this creates an awkward moment, and I just wait. And you know what someone inevitably raises their hand and says? What are their individual needs? And I say, exactly. So we don't subgroup them. We ask, what's Jenny's needs? Where's Jenny struggling? What specific standard, by name and by need? Other groups, we subgroup them. And unknowingly, that has put us in a weaker position because it takes us from the mirror, where I'm thinking about mixed fraction strategies, to the window where I'm asking, what's wrong with those kids? How come they can't learn like everybody else? Don't you wonder why the same 5 subgroups fail across the nation, no matter where, I'm telling you, no matter where. It can be urban, suburban, rural, extra rural. It doesn't matter where I go in the country, and everybody can name them. Black boys, Latino boys, kids that don't speak the King's English, kids identified with special needs, kids from poverty. Same groups, right? So either, as my friend Mike Battles put it, either we're saying that the members of those quote unquote subgroups are genetically predisposed to lower levels of intelligence, or we might have a subconscious sliding scale of expectations. Now, I heard him ask that question 10 years ago, and he followed up with, well, we know number one is ridiculous, right? So it's got to be number two, so how can we work on that? But it's 10 years, man, since he said that, since I heard him say that on the stage. And I wonder if we think the first one's true. I wonder if we think the first one's true. I do. Like subconsciously. Do we believe it? I don't, because I'm in a country where cars drive themselves, you know? I'm going to switch the station on my car drifts and the car jerks itself back into the lane. I got a neighbor who can control his barbecue grill from any state. Any state. He's got this Traeger, and on his phone, he can fire up, it's crazy. Control the lights from my phone. Even poor folk got supercomputers in their pockets. And we can't teach kids with melanin in their skin to read. And we assume that everybody that comes from poverty is dumb. I'm gonna get off this rant. Because I'm convinced, like, our assessments don't even test intelligence. That's the crazy thing about it. It tests access and opportunity. If my wife and I stood next to our two kids, and I mean, for where we come from, we're both kids from the hood, we've gotten to see a lot. I mean, we're both college graduates. That's a first in our, my wife's born of teenage parents. But if we were sent back in time and we stood shoulder to shoulder with our kids, and all four of us are 17, we might have an IEP based on, right? We might, just because what they've been exposed to, like where they've been, and they've traveled the world, and like what they've seen, just their experiences. And we came up pretty well. For where our parents come from, we came up pretty well. But I think our assessments, they test more access and opportunity, but we keep twisting it into smart and dumb. And I think it gets us in trouble personally, All right. I want to show you a clip. I want to start with that mission work. So I'm going to show you a clip from, it's a video, it's probably gone viral 100 different times, but it is of a stand-up comic who engages his audience and then an audience member. And when it's done, I want you to turn and talk about the messages, like the messages you get from the scene and how this message can inform our work. Yikes. Let's see if I can get this sound to go.
series is called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know, the next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what, the key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So Break Time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. So here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact because you're walking in or towards your purpose.
So I have to say, I show that video all over, and I work all over. And I already like your audience. Only in the Deep South do folks clap like they're actually in the room with the man singing. Like it's like church when I do this down. But y'all gave it to me here in suburban Illinois. So do me a favor, take 5 minutes, turn and talk. I'll put a timer on the screen. I want to know how this example can inform our work. How that example can inform our work, and then I want to hear from you. Go. All right, I'm going to invite you back. And, or you clearly need more time. Is that what it is? You're into this. Yeah, so I want to hear what you talked about. And so I know it seems kind of weird with the mic, but I'm going to ask that you wait till you have the mic, and then just pretend that it's amplifying because it's for the recording, but I know it feels weird. Like I'm wearing a mic, but it's not projecting. It's for that guy back there. Like he's causing all the trouble is really what it is. Like yeah. So let me hear from you. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Folks getting their steps in. I might put my phone in my pocket. Do me a favor. So belt it out so they can hear you, but in the mic.
The first week of school, we come in before classes start with the kids. We meet with all the department heads, and we have these fun, exciting meetings. But on the first day, they did ask us to ask what our why was as to why we were doing what we were doing. They told us their whys, and then we told them our whys.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Kudos. You're going to do it again today. I'm just saying, hopefully. Yeah. Good stuff.
We talked about how it would be nice if instead of sitting, like this should be, we need to replace the word mission statement. It's corporate.
What am I doing here?
Oh.
What am I doing here? I had my back turned for 8 seconds, and she's into my slides. Finish your point.
I would be a lot more apt to follow along at like district meetings if they said to talk about the why, like you said that your district did. And that even as like an itinerant team, some days your what is harder to do. So if you come up as a team of itins with your why collectively, this is no matter if you see me or the other itinerant, we'll have the same why. And on days my what is faltering, I've got other itinerants to lean on for the what.
I mean, between the two of you and others in here, man, I just want to pull up some TED Talks and let's just kick back and what am I doing here? Awesome.
I think we're constantly being handed another what. So when we can't handle the first what, and then we were given a second what, and a third what, and a fourth what, you have to be comfortable in your whats in order to feel good with your why.
Yeah.
Because if I can't handle all of the whats, I can't ever sit there and let my why shine through.
I know it.
It doesn't happen. There's too much.
You know, you think COVID would have taught us that less is more. Because we were forced into it, right? And no matter where you were in the country, at some point stuff stopped. But like we're right back to it. And you don't, like when I was a principal, and still I couldn't do this all the time, sometimes my why would help drive which of these whats I was gonna give good effort to. And which, but you don't always have that luxury. There were some whats that I would give C effort. Because it was just stuff I'm checking off for the man. You know what I mean? It wasn't no why, and it wasn't driving anything. And I'm like, we're gonna throw all of our energy into here. Now I'm not disparaging teacher evaluation systems at all. Well, maybe I can. I'm in the right place today, baby. I'm in the right place. Like that's something I gave my C effort to, honestly. Because short of someone like this was dead wood, that's different. You got to put pen to paper, baby. But otherwise, you know how our teachers got better? Working together as a team around the right questions with the right support and helping to build that muscle of, oh my God, your kids crushed it on section 2. I got a few that are struggling. What are you doing? What'd you find? Just things like that. All three of them getting to a point where they can own all the kids, because we had the whole, these are my kids, and I don't know if I trust them when I send them across the hall to you. Like, we have all that going on. But that did more to move our school, my focus on collaborative teams, than any, you sit, anyway. Teacher ops, like individual teacher. This stuff's not going to get done by any individual teacher. This is, anything that requires all means we need to collaborate, period, right? That's gonna be part of our mission, is that if we're really talking about all, like if we're really talking about it and not just on a t-shirt, then yeah. But why, your why definitely helps with that. Yeah, it was really good, man. Why drives everything. In your personal life, in your professional life, whether you realize it or not, why drives everything. And why doesn't kick in until you get kicked in the teeth. That's the thing. Like here today, we're off campus, we're in a nice setting. Like we can talk about why and just like it feels good. It does. But when you go get hit in the knees with something and you get knocked down, you know you have a why when you get back up. Why is amoral? It's not good or bad, it just is. It just is. And that's usually a litmus test. So why drives everything? Simon Sinek brought a lot of attention to the word why with his book, Start With Why. But why's been around forever, man. And you heard it. I mean, the first version was the what, and he hit his notes. He hit his notes. I was ready to drop something in the offering plate when he was singing that first version. And you were too, I was watching. But that second version, I've played that video 3,000 times and it still just stops me. I can never be doing anything else when he hits that note and then those cats are getting up and just it becomes infectious. Like he hit them all. Why gets us going when things are rough? That's what the why is about. So again, whether it's challenges with breaking through with a student, a new hobby, or something you decide to learn and do that's new, it comes with implementation dips, it comes with challenges. When you get knocked down, when you find yourself getting up again, that's a sign that you've got a why. Like this is really your why. Like my office looks like carnage. Is that because there are 1,000, I think this is my whys. All right, then I'll run with it, and then I realize, it's probably not my why. You know? So, why is like a weeble? It's another thing my wife tells me to take out of my presentation. She does. Because I wish I could just capture this sister's look right here. Here, and her too. They were both like, and I can see the wheels turning. What is a weeble? I don't even know what weeble is. But I see him looking this way, so I can't grab my phone because I want to ask Siri, what's a weeble? Oh my gosh. You probably look at that class picture I had up there. I wasn't even born in 92. I mean, I don't know what we even doing. I wasn't even born then. A weeble's an egg-shaped toy with a weighted bottom. On it were painted faces of your family and friends, community members, weeble fireman, weeble butcher, there's a weeble bus. And then what you did was, it sat up like you tipped it over and it got right back up. No USB ports, no 4K, no 4K HD. And we played for hours with a dumb toy that did this. That's all it did. It did nothing else. It did nothing else. It did nothing else. But I want you to think about this for a sec. I want you to think about a business. It could be a national business, it could be a mom and pop, local business that you patronize because they've got a why. And I don't mean necessarily like an altruistic why. I mean, they just deliver on the, they deliver what they say they're going to deliver. So consistently that you patronize them. Turn to one neighbor, and just share one business that you patronize that way. All right, give me a couple of examples. Business, company, firm, someplace that just delivers because their why is just consistent. Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you for remembering that. Thank you for remembering that.
Okay, I'm Tracy Mack. I'm one of the deaf and hard of hearing itinerant teachers. And my why is the the fast food place across the street from me. It's a local, just a couple of locations. Amato knows me. When I call and place my order, he calls me honey. What can I get you today, honey? He knows that my husband and I both get our pepper and egg sandwiches on pitas. When I show up, he asks how my husband is by name. His family comes in and sits there. Like, we could go any place, but we would rather go across the street because he's there, and I know that his family's, it's just a thing. And you can tell, like, how invested he is.
Awesome. Thank you. Pass that mic right behind you. There you go. Thank you.
There is a clothing store right up the street from our office that nobody really notices. It's on a corner. And when you walk in, the lady that owns it is extremely friendly, and she says, "What are you shopping for?" I went in there to get, my son was graduating college, and it was also my birthday. So I went in and I told her this, and she came up with like 15 different outfits and stuck them in the dressing room and said, "Here you go." And then you have to come out and she'll say, "No, that's not the right fit," or "Yes, that looks great." And it's like having a personal shopper. And now when I walk in, even if I have my daughter with me, she'll say, "Oh, I got some new stuff in. I thought of you when I saw it." And she brings it out, and she's very personable, and it almost makes shopping fun.
Awesome. I like that. I like that. I like that. I like that. Anyone else? Any national brands, curiously? Yeah, national firms that just deliver.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Everything from A to Z, and then if you have a problem with it, they credit you, send
Right,
you
no
another one,
questions.
no questions asked. You can drop it off at Kohl's, so you can shop some more and then drop your stuff off, and they'll send it
I'm
on back.
saying. You are so right. Like every day is Christmas at my house, feels like. On Amazon boxes.
We have a local bookstore. It's called Bookies, and there's a couple in the city of Chicago, but they took a chance and came down south out here, and unfortunately now they're closing, but they are the most wonderful people. You can walk in and say, "Oh, I love historical fiction." The lady goes and pulls 5 books off the shelf, and, "How about this one? This one's in large print." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not that old, but all right. I'll take it." And they're just great. "Oh, my mother-in-law loves puzzles." I went in there last week. She was like, "Hey, I remembered your mother-in-law. I ordered some puzzles for you." And she put them on the table. I mean, just an amazing store. Unfortunately, we're going to lose them due to the rent in Homewood. But, it's just something that now I will continue to go into the city to get to their store there.
Yeah.
Just
Good
because of the
stuff.
relationship they built. Yeah.
That's good stuff. And that why happens, they're able to put their stuff aside and make that why happen. And that's a piece of it. That's a piece of it. They're able to put it aside and make stuff happen. In the book you got today, you'll see a section called bag draggers. There are 5 levels of bag draggers, folks who drag the bags to school, their stuff. Most of us professionals leave our stuff at home, and then we come to work and we try to be where our feet are. Some of us put it in the car and drive it to work, but then we leave it in the car. Then sometimes there's like a level 3 bag dragger. They bring one bag in with them, and then you jump up to level 5. There's got like a 5-piece set of luggage. Those are the folks. You see them down the hall, you try to duck around and say hi to me, because you're about to be hit with 6 depressing stories. But yeah, when that why drives everything, man. I mean, who doesn't have something going on in their lives today, and yet, right in this place, trying to be present, good environment, making the work happen. We are going to take a 15-minute break, and then on the other side of that break, we're going to scratch the surface of your why, and then start running downhill toward what equity is and isn't. 15 minutes. All right, I'm going to invite you back. And now we're going to do a little work on this template that I provided. We're not going to get to all of it, but you've got this Why Drives Everything template. You can use it or your pad. Makes no difference to me, but I'm going to ask you to write again, and just like you did last time, I need you to write. So I want you to answer, I'm gonna have you answer a question, but I'm gonna ask that you don't begin answering the question until I explain everything, because there are very specific parameters, all right? So up here in the, whatever this corner is for you, is the question, what do you want school to provide your child? What do you want school to provide your child? Now, if you're a parent, of course, think about your own child or children. But if you're not a parent, think about a child so special in your life, you can use that child as the prism through which to answer this question. So you're either answering for your child or children or a child you love. Don't start yet. I'm gonna ask that you don't collaborate on this one. Don't share your responses, and don't consult one another. And most importantly, I need you to answer this question in one full sentence. I want school to provide, ... One sentence. One full sentence. I want school to provide, ... What questions do you have about this process? All right, give you about 93 seconds. Go. All righty. So you know how this goes. But this time, I'm going to ask you with response in hand to stand and gather in groups of 4. You may gather in groups of 3, but no more than 4. And mix it up with some folks on the other side of the room. You get to come back. Just stare at each other awkwardly until I give you the next direction. Stand and gather in groups of 4. You may gather in groups of 3, but no more than 4. Groups of 4 or 3. Stand and gather in groups of 4 or 3. 4 or 3. Stand and gather in groups of 4 or 3. I'm that teacher. Stand and gather in groups of 4 or 3. 5 is not 4 or 3, and 2 is not 4 or 3. That's my favorite line. Sorry. Groups of 4 or 3. Who needs a home? Someone needs a home. How are we going to work this out? Groups of 4 or 3. Who needs a home? You get to come back. You get to come back. We good? Now figure out who in your groups, whose birthday comes next in the calendar in your group. Whose birthday comes next in the calendar? All right. Now, on the screen is a turn timer designed to facilitate engagement. You've already used it once. The person whose birthday comes next in the calendar will go first, and we'll have 11 seconds to share his or her statement. Every 11 seconds, a chime will go off. It'll be the next person's turn. Work your way clockwise around your triad or your quad. When all 3 or 4 turns are done, please remain standing. What questions do you have about this process? All right, and go. All right, so stay where you are. And just for recording purposes, we're going to play Pass the Mic. And I can tell you, in a room this size, I'm going to want to hear from one person just about every row. Probably you're going to end up with like 12 to 13 of these. But it's got to work its way, the mic's got to work its way back around here. So who's up the mic? So we can do it one of 2 ways. Either you can just The key to the whole mic thing is just you gotta put it in their face. You can't ask. There you go, right. Don't wait for a volunteer because they're all gonna look away and stop. They don't make eye contact. So either we can start with a teammate and then they can pass it, or you can. It's up, it doesn't matter to me. All right, so we're gonna work our way down here and then back around. And listen, all I want you to do is read your statement. Don't summarize for the group, just your statement, and it needs to be in a full sentence. I want school to provide.
I want school to provide a safe, positive learning environment.
Awesome. Pass to another teammate.
To assist in preparing them to be functional members of society who contribute in a positive way.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Take 5 steps, take 5 steps. Yep, get it over. Full sentence, full sentence. Full sentence.
I want school to provide a well-rounded, hands-on, life skills-focused, fun, exciting experience.
These are
It's a lot
fantastic.
to
Keep it
ask.
moving this way.
Sorry.
Fantastic, fantastic.
I want school to provide a safe, loving learning environment that meets the students' learning needs.
Thank you. Over here, over here, over here, over here somewhere. Thank you, thank you.
I want school to provide a safe environment where my child will learn both academics and social and life skills.
Great. I need 2 more from this side. 2 more.
I want school to provide a place of exploration, discovery, creativity, and safety.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
I want a school that provides my child with a sense of belonging and accommodates and challenges them.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now we're going to start from the front and make our way to the back. I'm thinking like 8 from this side easily.
I don't need a mic.
Oh, you do, because it's
Oh, we want just equity across the board.
All right, which class? I want school to provide unbiased, accessible learning that involves community values and social justice.
Great, thank you. Pass it back, pass it back, pass it back.
I want school to provide a nurturing, supportive environment that allows for meaningful learning.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Pass it back.
A safe environment that promotes and encourages kindness, acceptance, independence, and high-quality education of the whole child.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Pass it around, pass it around. Full sentence, full sentence.
I want education to provide a safe and secure environment where my child will have many different learning experiences with friends and forming different relationships.
Excellent. 3 more, 3 more, 3 more, 1 dude, 3 more, 1 dude, 3 more, 1 needs to be a dude.
I want schools to be able to provide lesson plans ahead of time for us so we can be able to adapt for our students so they can be included in classroom instruction.
Excellent. 2 more, 1 dude, 2 more, 1 dude. A righteous dude.
I want school to provide creativity and think outside of the box when providing services.
Awesome. Bring us home, brother.
All right, this was regarding a specific kid that I'm working with. I want the school to provide a comprehensive evaluation in order to best educate his family regarding his multiple disabilities and prepare him for life after high school.
Fantastic, man. Thank you, teammates. And have exactly. Yep, that's a round. That deserves a round. Thank you. Wow. Wow. That was. Doesn't mean anything to you, but this activity I've done 2,000 times. It feeds my soul every single time. It's a winner every time. Like, this one has never failed, ever. Now, look, a day like today where you're off campus, like you decided you wanted to be here today, like, it's fun days for presenters, man. Like, you got an audience that actually wants to be here. Sometimes I show up at districts and maybe the culture's not super positive. You know? Like when the superintendent pulls me aside before I go out and they're like, Ken, before you go out there, I want you to know their hearts are in the right place. Like one of those deals. I go out there, right? People out there just like this. Even those audiences, when I ask them this question, you know what kind of answers I get? Same ones as yours. 93 seconds I gave you. No front loading. 1 sentence. And every single response, and I like to take a lot of them because I want to get a feel for the length and breadth of the room. I know we didn't select the 15 most awesomest ones in the room. They were fantastic. From the ones that were brief to the ones that were lengthy. From we want equity and social justice to that was a lesson in punctuation excellence with the sister right there. That was amazing. I had like PTSD from Sister Manuela and all the diagramming we used to do, diagramming sentences. Why is that line there? Oh, God. She got it. All of them. I've never been a superintendent, but I've been a principal, and I can tell you, I can take any one of the statements that were shared, and I can facilitate a process for us to get clear on the collective commitments for each of our roles, and then we get after it. Like, this activity has changed how I do mission with schools. Right? Much like the other sister said this morning, I don't sit around waiting, banging out a statement over 8 months anymore. If we were a new staff, if I'm a new principal and you were my new staff and this was the first activity we did, I'd be 80% home on mission. Awkward question. Was anybody offended by anything they heard? Personally, if I knew a school or a district took any one of your statements and used it as the prism through which to make all decisions, financial, human resources, support, salaries, materials, I could send my kids to that district and I could work in that district. It wouldn't matter where it was located. You get what I'm saying? And you did that in 93 seconds. I mean, you hit on stuff I hear all the time when I do this work. All the time. You hit on all of them, just about all of them. Opportunities to succeed, social, emotional, and academic. A safe space for kids. Teachers who care, kids who feel valued and seen, right? Belonging, a chance to access the world, feel loved, motivated. Here's the one I usually get from secondary audiences. I want school to provide the tools and skills to not live in my basement. The tools and skills to not live in my basement. But other than that, you nailed everything. Everything. It's amazing. So then the next step is to, in each of our roles, figure out what are the handful of collective commitments that go along with bringing your statement to life. See, initiatives aren't mission. This is mission, like what's on your paper. I work with a lot of PLC schools, and I tell them PLC is not a mission. Nobody gets out of bed for PLC. But I'll make the case that what you got on your paper, I can make a case for why PLC is your vehicle to get you there. I am equally amazed at what I never hear when I do this activity. Like, never. I listen for it because I see it in schools, but I never hear this. So here are some examples. I want school to provide my child a place where expectations are based on our zip code. I never hear that one.
It's there.
That's what I'm telling you. I see it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't hear these, but when I go to schools, I see it. Exactly.
It's there.
I want school to provide my child a place where expectations are lower because my child doesn't speak the King's English. I never hear that one. And it's really not the King's English. I don't know what it's called here, like ELs, ELLs, ELSOL, blah, blah. I don't know what it's called, but it's really Spanish. Like, when I smell an elephant, I just call it out. I can't, elephants are nice. They're nice animals. They're gentle. But they smell. They probably think I smell. Like, that Aqua Velva is killing me today. Like, that cat's wearing that Old Spice. But it's really not ELs, man. It's not all the languages. It's Spanish. Like, that's the one kids come to us on the cusp of being biliterate and bilingual. We're going to make them illiterate in 2 languages. I want school to provide my child a place where expectations are based on our income. I never hear that one. I want school to provide my child a place where my child is taught below grade level all year long. I never hear that one. I never hear that one. I want school to provide my child a place where an IEP means automatically diminished expectations. I never hear that one. I want school to provide my child a place where teachers come together and say things like, well, these kids can't. You know it's too much for these kids. I want school to provide my child a place where my child is known more for their subgroup and label than their own name. I never hear those. I want school to provide my child a place where my child is bubble wrapped and protected from rigor at all costs. I never hear that one either. I only hear ones like yours. Honestly, I only hear ones like yours, which again, I could organize a way for us to walk out of here today, man, and we would know. Like, here are the commitments if you are a school social worker. Here are commitments if you're an itinerant worker. Here are commitments if you're the school custodian, school principal, right? And I'm not talking about, like, we about kids. That's not a commitment. Like, that's a platitude. That looks like we about kids. That's nice on a shirt. I'm talking about stuff that we actually have to do. So once again, if I were a new principal and you were my staff, we'd be 80% home on mission. Honest to God, what I would do next is put you in groups of 3 and tell you, send the statement forward you like best, or do a mashup and send one forward. I'd put a white NCAA bracket up on the board. We'd put the statements on, we'd vote them off. In 45 minutes, we'd have our statement, which leaves us the rest of the time to get to the real work, which is what are each of us willing to do in our stakeholder groups to bring it to life. What we have is the opposite. We have much more statement than mission. Like, we spend 10 months, 16 focus groups, 14 surveys. What about the people at Target who work the front of the house? Shouldn't they have a say in our mission statement as well? And then we wordsmith it to death and dot it to death and underline it and cross outs, and we're too tired to work on the real work after we're done with 8 months of wordsmithing the hell out of the statement. So here's the question I have for you. It's the next question I want you to answer. I always get thrown off. I want to make sure I'm pacing myself the right way. I'm one of those people, like, my brain like goes, if time doesn't end on the 12 or the 6. I looked at it during break and I'm like, okay, you're good, relax your mind. 12:15. 12:15, it's fine. It's okay if it's not 12. It's 12:15, relax. Okay. If I'm your principal, I am absolutely clear on what you want for your kids and kids you love, honestly. Like, we have a lens now. The question I'd like you to take a minute to answer, I'd like you to answer it individually first and then talk about it with a neighbor, is this question. I know what you want for your kids and kids you love. Now I want to know, what do you want school, and oh, there's an actual template here. Oh yeah, there it is. Now I want to know, what do we want school to provide other people's kids? And so on your template, it's right here. I know what you want for your kids and kids you love. Now, what do you want for other people's kids? Take a minute, take 30 seconds to answer it, and then I want you to talk with a neighbor or two for like 2 minutes. Man, you guys, I usually get to ask the question and then I usually like duck out the door because I know I'm gonna get the side eye from someone, but she didn't give me the side eye. She spoke up, why is it different? Because I usually sneak out. That's why I said it again. I was gonna slide out. Because I usually get the side of like, he knows it's the same. He knows it's the same. Got us answering questions. He knows it's the same. That's what she's really saying to me. He knows it's the same. Why are you playing these games? Got us huddled up with other people. Anybody care to respond other than that?
Your child is special.
Clearly the kids we have and love are special because I heard no exceptions in any of those statements. There were no yeah buts. There were no exceptions at all. All I heard was rigor, excellence, equity, safety, love, belonging, motivation, like all the things. Like, what's that? Yeah. So I want to know, is it the same? So I'm joking around, but is it the same? Do we want the same for other people's kids? We do. We can acknowledge, however, that all kids don't come from homes like yours and mine, and right? Say it again. Let's say it in the mics. That's a great question. It is. I get that there might be different routes. Like some kids need more different, right? Yvette Jackson calls it school dependent. We have to gift kids with stuff to get them there. But everywhere I go, people say the destination's the same, right? My kid may be this much, another kid may be that much, another kid may be that, and maybe fill in a gap there, but the destination is the same. Because when I ask this question, what I want you to focus on is the time you control. The moment the kids walk over the threshold to the time they leave. Not home life. You can't control that, even though I'm guessing, maybe it's different here. You might have a student or two that maybe their family life undoes what you did during the day. Yeah, but you can't, but that question doesn't answer that. This question is from the time we have them to the time they leave. Are we operating the same way? So again, heart. Yes, yes, it's the same. How can it be any different? So now we're at the head. So here's the head part. If we want the same for every kid and we're operating that way, I'm in another profession. We're not here today. Is what I'm telling you. So in our hearts, I totally understand it. We want the same thing. But in our heads, a school that sells out to what you've written, we know those schools. I mean, I'm not talking about the schools where like the median income's $2 million and that, I'm talking about those schools that have to work for it in some way, you know what I mean? If we're operating that way for other people's kids, we don't have equity issues, is what I'm saying to you. So I get that it's the same in the heart, but we got to face the head. Like we don't have equity issues, we don't have these gaps, like we don't have them. Unless we're operating that way and it's really the kids and their parents, like back to that whole, right, genetically predisposed to lower levels of intelligence, or we didn't have a sliding scale of expectations. So I do want you to talk about that. Like, are we operating this way for kids, for other people's kids, during the day we control? I had plenty of parents who didn't know any better. Hell, it took monumental effort to just get my folks to just call parents, because the assumption was, we all hood rats, so they really don't care, so what am I making this call for? Like just those little tiny things. And helping my front office understand that these are clients. I don't care if they come up in a house coat and a bonnet and ready to cuss. Hand me down, smelling like cigarettes. They're clients. I'm going to treat them as such. But these are those little things, Do we pobrecito, Well, bless his heart. Poor baby. Because I didn't detect any, none of your statements said, and protect my child from rigor, and don't push him too hard, and So I want you to talk about it for just a couple of minutes, because there's one more activity I've got to get to before we break for lunch. Just a couple of minutes. Like, so where's the gap and what can we do about it? Because there's a gap. There's a gap. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, wait for the mic, sorry.
I was saying earlier, like, it's like there's two issues. I think everybody here is here because we want to better for our students. Like she was saying, we're all here. But I think, like, depending on what district you work in or where you have that inequity in itself right there, right? The money, the number of kids in the classrooms, all these other things that none of us here can control.
Right.
So then it's like two issues. So yeah, we need to look at what we were talking about earlier and what you want for your students, that why and all that.
Yeah.
But you can't control that, and that was what we were talking about with Chicago Public Schools and how it's ridiculous, the expectation and the numbers and the lack of support and there's only so much we could do. So
Yeah.
within, and you say when they come in the building, so where those are, it's like two issues. You have the stuff we can't control in
Right.
terms of, and
Yeah.
it all boils down to where you go back to those five, right?
Yeah.
Those five, because they don't have enough money and support, and that's why we have the five that aren't producing, right? And then but that is out of all of our control.
Yeah, I think some of it is money and support. I think some of it isn't money and support.
Well, yeah, I agree, but I
guess ultimately, and I empathize because it drives me crazy when your system set you up already to not succeed, and then when you get kids to succeed, it probably takes more effort and energy than it should, right? That could be expended somewhere else. My work is to try to help you figure out within the chaos, what can you still control? I came from a very dysfunctional school district. It's very dysfunctional. I mean, the board activity was like Flavor of Love, if you remember that TV show. Some of you spoke about it, was like, I'm not gonna tell them I know that show. There's no way I'm gonna admit to knowing that show. And so, I empathize and I understand it. I do. I do. I regress to the smallest means of the organization. I'm not a bureaucrat. I don't have patience. I don't have that kind of patience. And I probably do it to a fault where I'm going to try to work within, the bowls of crap they're feeding us and do our best. And my challenge in a situation like that every day is to not let the stuff spill over into charity work, and that's hard. Because when you're not set up to be your best, it's easy to just say, I'm just going to come in and just do what I can, under these insane conditions of CPS and wherever we are. That's a real tough one. I don't deny it at all. Like we were at school, it seemed like the truck always ran out of materials right before it got to our school. Right? It was like we were at school. And so it was a grind. It was a daily grind of what can we control? Do we have all kids learning at grade level or better? Are our expectations there? Do we have a zeros policy that lets kids off the hook and lets teachers off the hook? Are we given homework because it's a mindless precedent, or is it purposeful? In some situations, it's controversial. Why are we giving homework? This is the information age. Like we give homework honestly because home was given to us. This is the information age. And I'm not saying I know some schools that don't give homework because their policy was, they ain't gonna do it no how, like that. That's low expectations. In my mind, with the information age and the accessibility to information, if we can't teach it in 7 hours, man, then we got to examine what we're teaching, 1. 2, if I could turn back the clock, I'd probably be a hellish parent, probably, because I would fight homework. Like, I want to be a parent when my kids come home. Like, We're you know what I mean? Like our profession is complex, and then what you guys do, like it's like complex on steroids. But I think sometimes unknowingly we send stuff home to parents and expect them to become teachers. If our stuff is complex, and then I can't ask you to be an algebra teacher, right? Or a reading teacher. And I think we do too much of that. 1, 2, I want you to have lives after school. The stuff I talk about, I want you to max out your contracted duty day. Some of you are lifers. Some of you are going to work an hour or two after anyway. But I think we can get it done if we focus on the right things during our contracted duty day. And I want kids to be kids. I'm married to a lifer. And it's rough. It's not our marriage is rough. I'm just saying it's like I'm trying to get her to go part-time at this point. I'm just like, come on. I heard a podcast. This guy said, homework. Somebody brought up homework. He said, homework? In my mind, homework is unfinished classwork. Stop sending homework home. I want my kids to be kids. I want to have a life after school. He said, don't send home homework unless you want me to send dirty dishes in his bag that he didn't do the night before. I was done. That brother said that I was done. I'll send dirty dishes with him. I just think, so in our community, we were 95% free and reduced lunch, 95% poverty. And the fact was, a lot of our kids did not have support at home. A good number of them became adults when they got home. A lot of them were latchkey, blah, 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 blah. So in my mind, I got to a point, it's like, why are we sending traditional homework home when we know out of our 95% households living in poverty, 70% don't have support? We're like setting them up for, and then for the kids who have support, how we know who's doing the work? What is it telling us? Why are we doing this? Like we're the only profession that requires parents to be our profession, right? You send home drills with your kids, drills, practice and stuff, right? But do you expect your parents to paint lines in the backyard and, right, play goalie? No, you don't expect that. You don't expect that, right? Because you look like, no, we don't do that. Get them to practice on time, pick them up, here's the stuff we need, right? I don't know, I want us to move in that direction. So as tough as it is, I just want you to be focused on what nuggets can we control, but know that I empathize with you because it drives me crazy when you work 3 times as hard as you should for the same result as these 2 folks who have more support. That drives me crazy, and after a while, it's gonna fry you. You know this. And you're here, that's the thing. So I know it's like there's a party that's still like, all right, I gotta latch on to this nugget right here. I gotta latch on to this nugget. That is good stuff, man, good stuff. Really powerful. All right. So ultimately, this is what we're after, right? Mission is what we're after, not the mission statement. Mission. So I want to do one more thing with mission, and then I want to launch into our last activity before we break for lunch. All right. We're going to take like 6 minutes on this, and then put an activity to get you going again. All right. Oh, my speaker's not on.
Meanwhile.
Gosh, sorry. All right.
Meanwhile, Graham and Serena are back in Stuart's office for their second meeting of the day.
Yes, it might.
I think there should at least be some reference to the kids at some point.
Yes, good point, Graham. They're engaged in the crucial mission of drafting a new mission statement as required by law for submission to a meeting of forthcoming governors.
What about to seek to ensure? Yes, that's very good. I like that. Seek to ensure that each pupil shall develop.
Good, that's good.
Shall develop. Well, shall we just leave it at that? Shall develop. I mean, it's punchy.
No, I don't know. I think it's a bit
A bit general.
No, I don't know. A bit risky. I mean, a lot of them don't develop.
Yes, good point, Shona.
A lot of the fun's gone out of the job. You know, everything's got to be quantified, measured, written down, schemes of work, records of achievement, operational plans. Of course, I'm married now as well.
Yeah, with all this talk about educational standards, I mean, do you think that they've improved in your particular area?
Yeah, oh yeah, they have, most definitely.
Really? But what do you use to measure them, though?
A tape measure.
Right.
Okay, that's good, and breathe out.
What about shall maximise?
That is good. All right, good. So, shall maximise
Their options.
That's terribly good. Not sure.
No, right.
Could get a bit sticky with kids who haven't got any options. Yes, good point, Grace.
Yes.
Their potential.
No, same problem there really. You know, Guy Pope, for instance.
Optimal.
Yeah. Yes.
Shall maximise their optimal. What?
Potentiality?
Yeah. Yes. Has anyone been writing this down?
I have.
Good.
That's not what we want. That's not what we want. So just a quick primer on mission. So again, it's all about the mission we're on and not the statement, but the statement is part of it. So I just want to give you a couple of things to just look out for. A couple of things, just I call it mission ignition, all right? Once again, your mission's more than your mission statement, but the statement should have some elements. So there's some characteristics of mission that I just want to touch on. The first being math. Mission and math don't work. Mission and math don't work. They don't work. And we are a profession traditionally that we like things laid out logically. We like to know what's next, right? But mission doesn't operate that way. Mission, no one needs to set mission to get to that back door back there. We just don't need to do that. But to ensure every student learns a specific standard or skill, that's mission driven right there. So the way I say it is mission kicks in when the math stops working. 2 + 2 + 2 = 20 with mission. That's why we come together. Have you been part of a mission, whether it's your personal life, your church, civic group, sorority, fraternity, school, where it's just like, we're gonna make this happen, and here's what we're gonna do, right? It's typically just a handful of things we're all gonna do. We all got that wide-eyed look like this. And you know why you got that look like that? Because whatever you're trying to accomplish doesn't make sense on paper. That's what I mean by math. It doesn't work. That's why I get the realists that go, really? Can you really expect 100% of kids to learn? Really? And I'm just like, you know what? Well, let's try it this way. Let's say you get a new Target that opens up in your neighborhood, right? And on Saturday's a big grand opening. You pull into the parking lot, there's a huge red banner. Is this Tinley Park? Tinley? Yeah. Target is honored to be open now in Tinley Park. And under it says, it is our mission to ensure satisfaction to 87% of our customers. Come on in. Right? I don't know about you, but I'm just like this. Let me turn right around. So mission kicks in when the math stops working. And anytime there's something all kids have to learn, that's mission driven, if we're serious about it. right? So mission defies logic. It just does. That's why it's mission. Mission should also scare you a little bit. In a good way, but it should scare you a little. It should make you, like, make your bottom half tighten up just a little bit. We're just like, we're gonna make this happen. Just, like that scared and excitement at the same time, just like, yeah. Right, the fear is like, how are we gonna get this done? But the excitement is, oh my God, when we get this done, what it's gonna mean. And so with that, and you heard this in the video, you can't have hedging language in mission. Like they were like, we'll set out to provide an opportunity for kids to, yeah. Hedging language doesn't work. Like, we will strive to ensure we will strive to give kids an opportunity to learn at high levels. Like, okay. So I always ask, like, when you've accomplished your mission, what would you have done? Strived? You know what I mean? Or when we include other stakeholder groups to kind of like hedge our bet. In cooperation with parents, the people who work the front of the house at the Circle K down the street, Chick-fil-A staff members who work the drive-through, the governor, society, the mayor, governor, lieutenant, and the board. We will work together in partnership to make sure kids learn, as long as parents read to these damn kids 30 minutes a night, which we know they're not gonna do, like the whole thing. My point is, mission is for the folks inside the organization. Now, part of our mission was to re-engage our parents, but I would not let us make parents part of the mission, because if they don't hold up their end, then we got an excuse not to fulfill it. And I can't control them. But connecting with our parents was definitely a part of our mission. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. And then the last part is we got to identify collective commitments. Like, what are those practices that we commit to that ensure that our mission is accomplished? And in our world, it's equity. And that's what we're going to explore right now. Right now. It's story time. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to define what high levels of learning looks like and what equitable practice looks like. That's the only equity I care about, is the one that moves the needle, the achievement needle. And we're not going to hit it today. I may be able to get to it in the afternoon, but belonging is a missing link of equity work. It's not talked about because it's not sexy, it's not provocative, it doesn't get clicks, but if you don't feel like, you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't. Like, nobody wants to talk about belonging. Plus, it's such an innocuous word, everybody thinks they do it. But belonging is everything. If that kid walks into school, doesn't feel like anybody's glad that they showed up that day, forget it. But it's story time, because I got to get this for lunch. Story time. When I'm on the road, I drink Starbucks. I'm an entrepreneur, man. I would love to get up earlier and go find like your local mom and pop coffee shops, because I respect them so much. But I don't like the morning, though. That's the thing. Like, I leave myself just enough time to get coffee and get to work, you know? If they're open at midnight, I'd find all of them, because I'm a vampire. You know? I'm a vampire. Anyway, I drink Starbucks because it gives me a sense of routine, a sense of familiarity. I'm fortunate to be in this area for 2 days. I'm working in Oak Park tomorrow. So I'm not bouncing all over the place today. But, you know, Starbucks is pretty reliable. I'm not bragging about drinking Starbucks. No man should brag about drinking $6 coffee, but I do it. And my drink of choice happens to be the caramel macchiato. And I've had the great fortune of having baristas in my audience former baristas, current baristas, and they have vetted this recipe. Let's call these the essential learning outcomes, the priority standards, the need-to-knows of a caramel macchiato. There they are. So I go into the local Starbucks. Wow, like nobody's making eye contact. Oh, but you tried to look away, but I know. As soon as I said it, she did like that. I was like, it's too late, it's too late. What's your name, sister? Melissa. Well, Melissa is a barista. She's a graduate of our school system. She's trying to figure out what her next move is. So she's a barista. I place my order. She fulfills it. Great personality, great smile, great service. I even leave her a tip. I step out into the bright sunshine and take my first sip of coffee, and ooh, something's wrong with this coffee. But I'm thinking, maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. I've had so many of these coffees. Maybe it's me. I take a second sip and something's definitely wrong because now the whole right side of my face is just ashy, just dried out, just scaly. This side, oil of Olay all day. All the G Nate on this side ashy. I hold the cup up to the light. There's about 1.5 inches of salt in the coffee. The sodium dried my skin out. That's what, and if you remember, there's no mention of salt anywhere in this recipe. So I go back to the Starbucks. And the manager's name is? Missy. Missy sees me right away. Because good retail managers, they don't want to see you walk back in with that product. Missy comes right up and says, how can I help you? I said, girl, look at my skin over here. And she said, what happened? I said, there's about 1.5 inches of salt in my caramel macchiato. Missy was like, what? How'd that happen? Who helped you? I said, Melissa, and she was great. She said, Melissa? I said, yeah. She said, you know, we got 2 Melissas. Was it this Melissa or that Melissa? I said, that Melissa. She said, that one right there? I said, yeah. She said, ooh, let's take a walk. So we start walking. Missy's making small talk. She says, what do you do for a living, Ken? I said, I am an educator, and I travel the country helping educators lean into their collective genius to deliver on that promise for kids. Missy got so excited. She was like, oh my gosh, you're going to totally understand what I explained to you. And I said, what? She said, well, first of all, I want to let you know we love both our Melissas. Love them both. She said, but the one who helped you, and here's what you'll understand, Ken, when she was in school, she had one of those what they call an IEP. In my educator mind, I'm thinking, Missy, you can't share that with me, right? That's not legal. It's borderline unethical, and it's making me a little bit uncomfortable. But keep going. And so she continues to share. In the end, like a good leader, Missy says, Ken, let me get you a cup of coffee made the right way. And I, like a hero, say, no, ma'am, I'm keeping this coffee. And Missy said, why would you keep the coffee with the salt in it? And I said, because you've explained why it has salt in it. So I'm going to keep this coffee, tell Melissa she can keep the tip, and I'm going to be on my way. Maybe tell a brother where the nearest CVS or Walgreens is so I can buy a blood pressure cuff. Don't drop dead in these streets from hypertension. The end. That's the end of the story. Here's where you come in. This Starbucks location in Tinley Park doubles as a training facility. So downstairs is the retail outlet, just like any other Starbucks. But this is the upstairs. And you just watch that whole transaction happen between me, Missy, and Melissa on screen. And the executives of Starbucks come running into the room, like regional managers, like executive vice presidents, big heavy hitters come in. They know you're educators, and they say to you, educators, we need your help. We need your help. We need you to help us brainstorm some possible next steps to rectify this situation so that it never happens again. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to work in groups of 3 or more and come up with some possible next steps. Now, the one issue the executives tell you that you don't need to address is Missy's inappropriate sharing of the IEP info, because Missy's a longtime leader at Starbucks. That's a quick conversation. They'll rectify that quickly. But the rest of the transaction, you are. So when you get into your small groups, have one person record, and you're looking, the goal is to come up with 10 possible next steps. And think this way: check this, check that, look into this, look into that, consider this, consider that, move this, move that. You're not putting them in any kind of order. This is not you're not evaluating the steps. You don't have time to evaluate them. You don't have time to put them in order. You're spitballing. You're just brainstorming. Check this, check that, look into that, change this, change that, consider this, consider that. And the goal is to get 10 in 3 minutes, 38 seconds. So while I get the clock set up, form your groups of 3 or more. 3 minutes, 28 seconds. All right. All righty. So here's how we're going to do this. Any groups get 10? Come up with 10? 10? 9? 8? Nice. Cannot wait to hear. So I want to hear a couple off your list. All right. Anyone? Yeah, just give me, oh, sorry, thank you. Thank you for remembering. Give me one. Nice
Maybe
and loud.
visual recipes.
Thank you. Pass it right on back. Thank you. Thank you.
We need to analyze the breakdown.
Analyze the breakdown. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's right. You got this down. Why am I following you? No, we're good. Nice and loud.
Talk to the barista and see what things she needs to better support her.
Thank you. And again, if we started putting them in order, that's probably where we would start. Because it's a possibility it could be a one-off. But that's definitely one of them. Yeah, more.
Along with that, does she have a job coach, and is it being scaled back too quickly?
Does he have a job coach, and?
Is it being scaled back too quickly?
Did she have a job coach? And let's say she did, was that being scaled back too quickly? Thank you, thank you, thank you. More.
Reevaluate the procedures for supply placement. Why was the salt by the coffee stuff?
My, thank you. There was one more right at the back table right there.
You said making sure the product's in the right container, like maybe the salt was in the sugar. It was another error and she just didn't realize it.
Wow. You know this is not personal, right? I mean, Melissa's good people, because I'm saying this because I'm pleasantly surprised that so far, I would say 50% of what you've come up with are direct supports for Melissa, the barista, and the other 50%, you're questioning the system, right? Like if the stuff's not in the right order, do we have visual recipes? Was the coaching pulled back too soon? You're going to find out in a few minutes why I find that interesting, but keep going, more.
You could color code the drink so she's only using one color throughout the system.
Color code the drink so she's using only one color throughout the system. Thank you.
Or video tutorials so she can see visually how to make the drinks.
And tutorials. So again, it sounds like you got both of them mixed in the same one. Like that's a direct support for her, but you wouldn't abandon that, right? You can keep that in place for future baristas. So the cool thing is the stuff you're coming up with, Melissa's getting better, and Starbucks is going to get better. Like both. It's a double win. More.
Was there accommodation that was missing? Like, could she hear you when you ordered correctly, or did she have her glasses on that day?
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Man, oh man.
If she's colorblind and the labels are too close in shades, or we said, what if she's dyslexic and so some of the labels just aren't working for her?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You got one up here, and then we got a few coming from here. My.
If she struggles with drink making, then is there a different role within the shop that she could fulfill, like just taking the orders rather than implementing, anything like that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We're going to touch on that as well. I need about 4 or 5 from over here. Come on now, give me some. Oh, she's got one right behind you. Oh, they took all your answers?
Yeah. We got more.
We did actually, just to repeat what they said across the way, that we would ask her to show us how she made the drink and either identify the mistake in how she made it or go back and check the containers because she actually made it correct, but something must be wrong with the ingredients.
Again, a double win. A double win right behind you. Rattle off a couple if you got.
We said we'd even talk to her coworkers to see if she has a habit of doing this incorrectly or if it's just like a one-off problem.
It's great. It's great.
And then we also said maybe someone is playing a prank on her.
Mhm.
Maybe it's like a trick. Maybe it's April Fool's Day or something
Possibility.
goofy. And we also said maybe she doesn't like people named Ken.
Distinct possibility.
Or she didn't like your hat, you know,
Distinct
maybe.
possibility.
Maybe she's like, I'm going to mess up his
Right.
coffee on purpose. Your
A
ex-boyfriend's
guy
name
born
was
in
Ken.
Brooklyn wearing cowboy
You
hats.
know. She knew you were from out of town. She's like, you know, I don't like
Right. Got one more over here?
We talked about maybe taste testing.
It's great.
You know, if
great.
you like it, it's going to be good for other people. And then possibly maybe the environment. If she was, her station's facing the customers, that might make her nervous. Maybe turn and she can get the station behind if that was an issue.
It's good stuff. Now, I apologize. We kind of did a horseshoe, so like so many of the answers have been exhausted. You guys got anything that hasn't been said yet? Melissa wants to defend herself. I got something to say. Pass me the mic.
I think they're similar, but having her just practice the drinks more and just keep doing it
Yep.
until she can get it right. And then we talked about like a shadowing partner barista that works alongside her.
Man, oh man.
We had.
Okay, so if I ran over by 5 minutes, can they? Would that they can still they get the. So if I ran over by 5 minutes, but I don't want it to cut into their 50 minutes, is it 40? Okay, cool. And no more than 5. All right.
We had pre-measured ingredients.
Pre-measured ingredients. Yep. Again, another systems issue. Because, and this gets pointed out sometimes, it was like, that's very vague. Like, that's a lot of like, you know, like how much of a crosshatch and how much steamed milk and foam are poured.
I'm not sure this was mentioned, but how about
Nice and loud back there. 'Cause
how about talking to the manager and saying, like, people have different learning styles, you have to train in different ways.
man, oh man. Wow. So I want you to picture all of your suggestions, one per Post-it, on a wall. Whew. Anybody have fire, Melissa? Anybody fire, Melissa? No? Okay, I'm just curious. I work in high schools, it always comes up. And I don't like to not bring it up because it's a possibility, and so is changing her role. That's a possibility. My question is always, would she get fired or have her role changed on the front end, or would it come after you've tried, after you've tried you got clear evidence that makes sense. Now, I consider changing her role and firing her distant possibilities based on what you've suggested. Because I'm picturing each one of your suggestions on a Post-it, like on one of those panels. And man, if we took the next step and put stuff in order, you guys came up with like 3 or 4 different on-ramps for her, like 3 or 4 different distinct plans. That's why I call it a distant possibility. She's gonna have a hard time not making that coffee. With the supports that you came up with. Does that make sense? Like every time you came up with another suggestion, I saw another step between Melissa and the standard, like a bridge. And what you've come up with, some of the most like eclectic and creative stuff that I've heard, I picture 3 or 4 distinct on-ramps. Our next problem is like, which on-ramp we're gonna try first. You guys did this with a coffee recipe. It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So I don't take firing her off the table. I don't take changing her role off the table because I don't want the quote-unquote realist to tell me that this is Pollyanna, because it's not. I'm just saying, based on what you've suggested, she's going to have to work hard to not be able to make that coffee. Because you put some great stuff in place in 3 minutes 28 seconds. So here's the premise. you would make great consultants for Starbucks. Clearly, and you would make great consultants for Starbucks. That's what you come up with, improve Starbucks and Melissa and future baristas. My question is, if the baristas came to watch us work in our schools, would they see the same process? And that there is what you call a rhetorical question, because I already know the answer. And the answer is no, they would not see the same process. They would not see the same process. Because in schools, and I'm not talking about you individually, because there are always pockets who think differently, but by and large, in schools, as soon as we find out there's an IEP, expectations automatically go, whoa, right off the bat. Right off the bat. And by the way, I use IEP because it's the most expectation reducing label we have, but you can replace IEP with any of the other ones. Poor white kids, poor black kids, poor brown kids, kids that don't speak the King's English, kids identified with special needs, kids in poverty, kids we just considered unmotivated. Call it what you want. But we know if they come to see us work in our schools, expectations go like that. They come to see us work in our schools, and we know Melissa got an IEP. She's not making that. That's grade level. That's grade level. That's changing on the front end. Now do you see why I asked you, do you make her a greeter on the front end? Do you fire her on the front end? You were like, no. We do that after we've got clear evidence. But in schools, we do it right away. We change that right away. They're not going to see Melissa make no caramel macchiato like that. They might see her make a remedial caramel macchiato. Or a modified caramel macchiato. Or remedial pre-caramel macchiato. A third-degree double Dutch modified caramel macchiato. Or the special parallel vertical caramel macchiato. The bottom line is we level down. We level down in schools. And this is across the board. We level down in schools. And we should stop leveling down in schools. Why? My favorite part. We should stop leveling down not because of what I'm going to tell you, it's because what you just proved. And we'll pick this up again right after lunch too, but I just want to get to this part. What you proved, I told you a 4-minute story about Starbucks. I put you to work for 3 minutes, 28 seconds around a coffee recipe. We processed for 5 minutes. And in that time, you proved life doesn't level down. That's what you proved. Life doesn't level down. Unless I'm wrong. So if someone's got on their list, let Melissa make a 3-step macchiato. Let her choose her favorite 3 steps of the 5. Everybody got that one? Let her choose what she wants because she come from tough life. Everybody got that one? No? Let her do what she feels because she's been through a lot and we don't want to put too much pressure on her. Everybody got that one? No? Nobody got the 2-step macchiato? No? No. All you got are bridges and scaffolds that could apply to anyone, right? They're not IEP bridges and scaffolds. Can apply to any barista. All you built 4 different on-ramps for her to go from where she is to that standard. And nobody dumbed it down. That's why I asked you. Would you fire her on the front end? And you said no. Would you change her role on the front end? And you said no. But in schools, we changed the standard right away. We changed the expectation right away. For a number of different kids. And you know this. But you didn't. Like coffee's important to me, right? It guarantees you're gonna like me better. But I gotta believe there are learning outcomes that are more important than a coffee recipe. Would you agree? Anybody agree with that? You got learning outcomes more important than a coffee recipe? I believe that. But again, what I see is those learning outcomes change. And I'm not talking about different paths to the same objective. I'm talking about they change. Expectations change. Like we alter the standard on the front end. But you didn't alter this standard, and I want to know why. Like you defended this recipe like your granddaddy started Starbucks. That's my grandpa recipe. What are we doing? No one touched the recipe. I want to know why. Why was there no offer? And I not only gave you IEP, I left it wide open. So it could be anything. And none of you dumbed it down. And yet you talked about dyslexia, right? Visual issues, processing, and had fixes for all of it. So why was there no suggestion to change the standard as quickly as we change it in schools? That's not rhetorical. I want to know. Why?
One thing I thought of was that given whatever circumstances on any day, any one of us could have made the same mistake. We could have accidentally grabbed the salt instead of the sugar.
All day.
Because the
You have to
customer.
speak. I'm sorry. I know you're talking like you're talking into a live mic.
Because the customer expects the product a certain way.
Yeah. Anybody got anything to add to why the recipe didn't change? We got one in the back. Oh.
I was just going to say the same thing. It's Starbucks. We don't change Starbucks. That's
You don't change the Starbucks. And it's just right back. There you go. Thank you. And then we'll break and you're going to get your full lunchtime.
Because we wanted to
Nice and loud for me.
wanted to give her the opportunity to make what is expected by the customer.
Yeah. I mean, if we change it, oh no, come on up, Melissa. Right? It was like, here's why.
Because she can
Nice and
do
loud.
it. Because she can do it.
Because she can do it. You proved that. You didn't even know her. You proved it. 4 different ways. Like those are 4 legit on-ramps. And we know if we let her make a 3-step macchiato, just choose ones you like. It's no longer a macchiato, is it? So I want to make the same case for a standard. When we identify a standard that every kid has to learn to be ready for the next grade level, the next course, the high-stakes assessment where applicable, and life beyond the K-12 system, I want to make the case that when we alter it, it's no longer the standard. And yet you didn't touch this. So let me tell you what we did, and then we're going to go to lunch. Subconsciously for most of us, and maybe consciously for 1 or 2 of us, you looked at that recipe and you instantly said, we can't change that. And that was it. Almost like a steel door came down on that possibility. It took you 1/100th of an 1100th of a second of a half a second. We can't change that. Once you made that decision, all of your energy went into how to build a bridge between Melissa and the standard. It didn't erase any of her perceived issues. It didn't erase any of her perceived challenges. They just went from challenges to context. And that's what ruthless equity is. So what you did in this Starbucks activity is you executed like a high-performing collaborative team. Anybody at PLC school? Anybody work at a PLC school at all? What is that? Okay, no, I'm sorry, but I keep mentioning it. It's professional learning communities. It's a way to organize folks. It's, everywhere I go, people know about it, so I just try to mention it. The bottom line is, what you did, like that was a perfect collaborative team. Perfect. You had what's essential in the middle, that you treated the barista recipe, you treated the caramel macchiato recipe like it was essential. And when you treat something like it's essential, there is no can they or can't they. There's only how will we get them there. This work is 50% mindset and 50% practice, and you executed both to perfection. You treated that recipe like it was essential. And essential outcomes are the key to instructional equity. So first of all, you cannot have equity without an essential outcome. There's got to be a place where all kids have to go. So what is that in your specific curricular areas? What math standards, reading standards, ELA, language, whatever your course or content area is? What are the things that no kid can walk out without? And once those are decided, there is no can Melissa or can't Melissa. There's only how will we get them there. And that's what equity is. That's what equity is in practice. So you executed equity with perfection. You had the barista recipe. That's where every barista's got to go. She's got an IEP. We don't know what it's about. We're going to take some guesses. It's just context, not an excuse. And if you follow my work, you'll see the hashtag a lot, start with the crown. Start with the crown, not with the kid. Start with the crown, not with the kid. That's equity at work. Equity requires a crown. And this is based on the back cover of the brochure I ordered when I was 16 years old for my alma mater. And it contained a quote by past President Howard Thurman, who said, above the head of every student, Morehouse holds a crown she challenged them to grow tall enough to wear. You held that recipe above Melissa's head, and then you provided the scaffolds for her to grow tall enough to wear them. That's what equity is. And the beauty of equity is that it takes the weight of trying to figure out who can and who can't off you. I call it the backpack of boulders. I don't want that. I don't want that burden. I don't want to figure out who can and who can't. I just want to know what they have to learn. Now, there's stuff beyond the essentials. There's secret recipes at Starbucks. There's stuff that baristas can learn on their own. But that 5-step recipe right there, every barista's got to have it. Every barista's got to have it. And so again, the only question that matters is how will we get them there? And when you symbolically shut down that part of your brain that wants to invest in excuses and you turn it into context, we become unstoppable. Another way to picture it is that the human being, we put our back to the wall and decide the only way out is that way. To me, we are no better than when we're in that position. We put our backs to the wall and we decide the only way out is that way. And so here's how I define ruthless equity. We'll end here. In a culture of belonging and inclusion, organizing to provide students what they need, when they need it, with urgency to master essential learning outcomes. Essential. Those are the ones they have to have. Those are the ones they have to have. Organize and provide students what they need, when they need it, with urgency. So instructional equity starts with a learning outcome every kid's got to master. Without that, equity talk is noise. It's going to end up being noise. Because if you did what you just did with every kid, one, you'd be living what's on your paper from this morning about what you want school to provide every child. That's how you live it. And when all three of us are around the table and everybody's pockets are emptied out and everybody's got rabbit ears, we've tried everything we know to reach Melissa. Then we reach outside the team. Who knows something? God help anyone walking down our hallway when we're looking around to find some answers. You better take the long way to go pee because we're going to grab you if you walk down, right? Who didn't Melissa hang out with? Oh, I've seen it with her sometimes. Like, I've seen your arm around. Come on in. It becomes a triage unit. Because with ruthless equity, you don't care where the answer comes from. You just got to find the answer. And the ruthless part of this is you got to shut the noise out from outside that tells you poor white kids can't learn, kids from that neighborhood can't learn, kids with these IEPs can't learn. That there's so much trauma going on out there that there's no way you're going to get to the learning. And I'm talking about both sides of that coin because I believe like the extreme woke and the extreme racist are often two sides of the same coin. Hearts in two different places. But the destination ends up being the same. The racist, of course, thinks we can't do it, right? Girls in mint green shirts can't learn. But this extreme woke stuff out here presents kids as so broken they can't learn. And that scares me more than anything. Because I'm supposed to be one of those kids. And I know there are inequities, and I know we have to point them out, but we can't point them out at the expense of learning, and that's what's happening. Why should kids have to learn that? And these kids, and this is not relevant to these kids, and these kids, and we can make a case for it and find all the research, but you know what happens in the end? That group of kids ends up looking broken in the end. That's what happens. Nobody looks at a group of kids who failed and say, well, based on that kid's culture and where they're from in the environment, they shouldn't have to learn that anyway. That sounds good in the moment, but when all the confetti falls, we can look at those kids and say, why can't they learn like everybody else? Why can't they learn like everybody else? And so personally, I don't subscribe to, this is how you teach this race of kids. I don't subscribe to that. That stuff scares me. And I got great friends who write them. If we go at it, I tell them, like as soon as you tell me there's a certain way to teach black boys, you've cast black boys as broken. Outside of my parents, I'm here because of two teachers. One who's passed away, who told me in 7th grade, you're going to Morehouse College. Explained the history of Morehouse and Spelman to me, and looked at me and said, you are going to Morehouse College. And I'm there with hand-me-downs, a Wonder Bread lunchbox with an egg salad sandwich that smells like the biggest fart in the world. And we ate in our classrooms with no AC, so you can imagine what it was like to unwrap that sandwich. Who knows about egg sandwiches? You know about that? When you broke or poor, like, and your mama still wants to, she spoke it into me. And my 2nd grade teacher, who on November 5th will celebrate her 60th year of teaching. 60th year as a nun, 60th year teacher, and I'm gonna fly up. We still hang out. My 7th grade teacher would blend into our Christmas picture. She would blend right in, look like an auntie or grandma. My 2nd grade teacher will stand out, right? Short little Irish woman from Brooklyn, was a nun for 60 years, my 2nd grade teacher, and made me believe I could do anything. And I honor her every moment I get. That's what kids need. They need us to be persistent because some kids have been rejected for so long, over and over again, that you just got to keep come back and knock, come back and knock, come back and knock. And for some of us, we got to learn about our kids and their culture and where they're from. My first principalship, it was in an all-white area. In a district that had they had hoods and stuff. I was like, you see who I am, right? Like, put me down there in Rockville with my cousins and stuff. I'm from New York. They're like, we need you up there. I was like, up there? Right? So all my hood credibility was gone. I had to get out in that community and learn. And in the end, folks want their kids to have a better life than they had, want them to learn, be cared for, all that stuff. And we had to not be afraid to ask each other questions. You know what I'm saying? I don't wind down well. Gosh. I've been working on it too. Like I'm at a 10 right now. You know, like, you gotta have equity. Go to lunch. Now go to lunch. It's just like, so what was it? So let's come back at 1:15. All right, lunch looked really good. I'd like 3 takeaways from this morning. 3 takeaways. Can be an aha, something new you learned, or an amen, something that was just affirmed for you. Or even a now what, something that you've gotten as far as, hey, I'm going to do something differently moving forward. Just a takeaway from our work this morning. Take 30 seconds to share with a neighbor. Then I need 3, and we're going to go. All right, I'm going to invite you back. I'm going to invite you back. It's 3 takeaways. 3. Need to hear from 3 people. Give me a takeaway from this morning.
Can't put kids in a box.
She's coming.
Thank you so much.
You can't put kids in a box and can't have preconceived notions of them.
That's right. Yeah. And if you have preconceived notions, it's context, right? Because we all think, we all process. It's all context. If they got to get to that recipe, they got to get to the recipe. Yes, thank you.
Keeping in mind, what do you want for your child in school, and keeping that same expectation for what other people's children.
That's right. Focusing on what you can control. And that's the challenge. Focusing on what you can control.
Just really focusing on that, keeping that why in mind and how it changes things.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Thank you. We'll take one more.
Kind of building off that last comment, we were talking back here about the what and the why, and I think another hot topic, including, along the lines of equity, is teacher burnout, and we burn out on the what. We don't burn out on the why. The why is what ignites your fire. So really making sure that as a community of teachers, we're focusing back on that why so we don't burn out so much.
That's right. And I'm telling you, equity requires collaboration, right? Because instructional equity is ensuring that all kids master what's essential. And the only way to accomplish that is through our collective effort. No one teacher has all the answers. That's the only reason you collaborate, because no one teacher has all the answers. And we got a better shot at all if there are three of us versus one of us. And so in that sense, we got to be transparent and vulnerable with one another. But when mission's right in the center of things, we're good with that. It's when it gets muddy and we wonder, are we asked to share each other's data because someone's looking over our shoulder? Is it a gotcha? All those things. Yes?
I was processing just everything, but what stuck in my mind was the scenario at Starbucks with Melissa. And I thought about all of the interventions that people came up with to assist her, and I know this only works with older people that can possibly communicate their needs and wants better or articulate it, but no one said, ask Melissa what help that she may need. We came up with things for her to make the process of making the coffee the right way, but did anyone stop to say, what is it that Melissa needs? And then the other part of that was, when you found out, just using the scenario, that she had the IEP or she had a need, you were willing to give her more grace because you kept the coffee and thought,
low expectations on my part.
And so being devil's advocate, my thing is, would you have given Melissa the same grace had you not known she had a need? A lot of times, I can say honestly that I went through a drive-through window, ordered articulately what I wanted, hot dog, no ketchup. And I get my hot dog and it has ketchup. How am I to know that the person that made my hot dog heard what I said articulately? Did they have a special need? You don't have time to process. I wasn't willing to give them grace because I figured the expectation was, you know how to make hot dogs, I made my order, you should have gotten it right. So I felt like, do we give people grace when they make mistakes, whether they have a special need or not? And then also, we can't, as educators, assume what kids need, especially if they're articulate enough or can communicate to some level what they need. We just want to say, okay, this didn't happen, so you need this and you need that, and we need to fix this, and we survey the child, especially when you're working with maybe high schoolers or middle schoolers that can say, hey, I need help, but what kind of help do you need? Don't assume things for students.
Thank you. Well, I'll tell you, you were my Vanna White running all over the room with the mic, but a couple of groups did actually come up with, let's talk with her first, to their credit. So they did. And me accepting that coffee was an example of low expectations. Because you should expect a hot dog with no ketchup. We can give grace in that, give folks a chance to rectify the situation, right? That's what I try to do, is like, okay, you're human. We're human. Could have just been a moment you didn't hear it or whatever it was, but ultimately I want the hot dog with no ketchup. Like, I should not have walked out with that salty coffee, but I was, right, I was as negligent as Missy was, right? She said it was because of an IP, and I was like, well, I guess so. I just accept it. But that's not how life works. That's not how life works. So you're absolutely right. And we do have to talk with her. There's no question. Someone right behind you.
Thank you so much. I want to build on what Lisa said, and it's a completely different topic. But I'm reminded of a video we saw during our trauma presentation last year that showed several individuals walking through a school with a little bubble over the head, talking about the various traumas that they've been through that are invisible to others. And so just throwing that piece in there.
Yeah. You know, the best teachers I've ever had, the best ones I've ever worked with, the best ones I've ever hired do three things. They assume nothing, they prepare for everything, and they respond based on evidence, right? Like you said, not just projecting. And if the Starbucks activity was pulling up to a hot dog, right, fast food place in the drive-thru, and you got ketchup, we would have gone through the same process. How do we prepare them for life so that it gives us the best chance to deliver on what's essential? That's really important. And that's where equity is. So equity starts with an essential. You want to level the playing field? Start with what's essential. Right now, we base what kids should learn on what we see, what side of town they're from. Is it the north side or the south side? And we got the same situation in a big district in Georgia, Fulton County. You cross over Pacers Ferry Road, and you on the north side, where they get the nicest of everything. They don't lack for any resources. And then you hit the south side back toward the city, where poor folks of all shades live, and especially black folks and brown folks. I was telling my sister earlier, you know, the south side's textbooks are the ones that the north side decide they're done with. That's in the same district. That's insane. And it is a challenge to connect with folks who are working in systems like that and still get you to see, because it's so easy to like hopelessness is just like, it's hard to not drift over into doing what I call charity work, where we're just grinding. It just feels like you take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And admittedly, I'm not a system. I'm going to support whoever wants to go up and try to change the big system. I will donate money and stuff like that. I don't have that kind of patience for that kind of politics. But I'm into trying to figure out how to help you transform your school in the midst of this nonsense, so that then you can advocate for look, you're giving us pebbles here. It's ridiculous. It's because it always shakes out to the kids ultimately, and then their parents and blah blah blah, all that stuff. I appreciate that. All right, here's what we're going to do with the afternoon. I'm going to start with this video. And then I'm going to engage you in an activity that's going to take us to the end of our day. Watch it, turn and talk for a minute, give me some feedback, and then we're going to jump in.
I don't want to be the principal of the first school in the history of Los Angeles. I don't want to be the principal of the first school in the history of Los Angeles to lose its accreditation.
I'm the last person to say that this math department couldn't improve. If you want higher test scores, start by changing the economic level of this community.
The purpose of this meeting is to review the recommendations for accreditation. Any suggestions? Anybody?
Yeah. I don't think I should be teaching math next semester. I mean, I was hired to be a phys ed instructor.
As I said before, we lack the resources to implement the changes the district demands.
Mr. Senzaki, you must have at least one comment.
This may not be the right time to say this, but I'm sorry, but I won't be coming back after Christmas. I got a job with aerospace.
How much money have you made? Look, we have the remainder of the year before we're put on probation. Now, if we fail, we'll lose our accreditation.
Fail. You can't teach logarithms to illiterates. Look, these kids come to us with barely a 7th grade education. Now, there isn't a teacher in this room who isn't doing everything he possibly can.
I'm done. I could teach more.
I'm sure Mr. Escalante has good intentions, but he's only been here a few months.
Students will rise to the level of expectations, Senor Molina.
What do you need, Mr. Escalante?
Ganas. That's all we need is ganas.
There will be no free rides, no excuses. You already have 2 strikes against you. There are some people in this world who will assume that you know less than you do because of your name and your complexion. But math is the great equalizer. When you go for a job, the person giving you that job will not want to hear your problems, and neither do I. You're going to work harder than you ever worked before. And the only thing I ask from you is ganas, desire, a haircut. If you don't have the ganas, I will give it to you because I'm an expert.
All right. Take a minute. Turn and talk what resonated with you, and then we're going to jump in. All right, I'm going to invite you back. Any thoughts? Any reaction to that video?
Edward James almost as you.
Oh, I wish. Yeah, he's a bad boy.
I said Edward James almost as him by saying, you know, he's taking out everything. No matter what you got to see or do, you're going to do the work.
You got to. Now, I'll tell you, I appreciate those kind words, but I would say my parents more embodied that. Not even than me, it's what they instilled. You know, I'm a black man in America, and look, I love this country. I don't want to be anywhere else, personally. That said, there are some challenges that come with being a brother in this country. And my parents spelled that out, made no bones about it. You know, sometimes things are unfair. Sometimes you have to work twice as hard as the man next to you who doesn't look like you to get the same kind of recognition. That stinks, and until it changes, that's the way it is. So get up and get after it. Get up and get after it. Like, they just wouldn't allow for any excuses. My parents would never, ever put forth the idea that I couldn't learn like other kids. They would never subscribe to that. Because they know, they just know the fallout of that. And so that is definitely a powerful message. So is the level rising to expectations. I mean, I don't know. It works both ways. That's the thing.
And I think that works for those.
It's nice and loud.
And I think that works also for the kids that are put into groups. I was just telling them, I had this student with Down syndrome that I saw her when she was in grade school, and when she was in grade school, she was wearing her hearing aids, she was working hard, good language, behaving really nice. Didn't see her for a number of years, got her back in high school, and she was an entirely different girl. And I didn't understand what happened between then until I had an IEP meeting where her father attended and watched him treat this 18-year-old young lady like a 2-year-old for the entire meeting. And I'm like, this is why.
Yeah.
Because the expectation at home is that you're a little girl and I'm going to do everything for you. And he treats her like a little girl. And now she's probably could have been employed and, you know, and out and about in the community, which now probably is just sitting at home.
I get that. Absolutely. And it's definitely a challenge when our parents don't know any better or they think they know better. And we have to be the experts. It worries me even more when we do that. That's what worries me even more, that like we're supposed to know better. And then help our parents know better. You know, like help our parents know better. Such a great point. It's all just expectations. It's just a universal practice, universal principle. And he let no room in for anything else. So here's what I want to do with you. I want you thinking about the label at risk. And I'm going to have you work in small groups again. One person can be a recorder. And what you're going to do is, based on information you know, I mean, we all know what at risk means. And what's your name, good sister? Oh. Nicole, thank you. I can remember that. My wife's name is Nicole. So here's what I want you to do, and there's a purpose to this. As a small group, you're going to come up with quick bullets, statements you hear, questions, and concerns typically associated with at-risk students. Statements you hear, questions, and concerns. Almost pretend like you're over here in a conversation in the community. Maybe there's a cover on Time magazine focused on at-risk students. Maybe you walk into the staff lounge at the right time or the wrong time, and you're hearing some stuff about quote-unquote at-risk students. And whomever you picture as you make that list, I want you to just pretend that Nicole's wearing this hat and it says at risk, right? So Nicole's the kid, at risk. Quick bullets, statements you hear, questions and concerns. Stuff that you might overhear in the community, overhear at school, associated with at-risk students. So I want you in groups of 3 or more. Let's figure that out. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to come up with that bulleted list. At risk. 3 minutes. All right. All righty. So you've got a list. And what I'd like to do is just kind of, it's just popcorn responses. We'll take a few at a time. And if you hear something that's not on your list, I'm going to pause and let you add it to your list. So we'll take a couple of responses at a time. So what do you have on your list? Just give me a hand. Just give me one from your
no
list.
support at home. No support at home.
No support at home. Thank you. More.
Like economic status, free reduced lunch.
Yes, so low socioeconomic status, free and reduced lunch.
I have one that's like a little more specific to some experiences, but with incoming failed hearing tests, they'll say, what are their grades? Their grades are fine, move on, where we don't look at the social, emotional, or the functional impact.
Thank you. What are some of the statements you hear?
If they could get their behavior under control, they'd be just fine.
Oh my gosh, if you get their behavior under control, they'll be just fine. What else? Good. There's one right behind you. And then.
He has a young mother, or she has a young mother.
Oh my gosh, apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? That's a young mother, she has a young mother.
They don't care or try, so why should I?
They don't care or try, so why should I?
They're just going to drop out or they're about to graduate, so why bother?
Gonna drop out before graduation, so why bother? This is so accurate.
There just aren't enough resources in the community.
Mm-hmm. is one.
Where?
Let's just do an evaluation right now.
Oh
We know that
my.
there's a problem.
Let's just do an evaluation right now. Man, you just gave me that was a little PTSD, I'm sorry. I'm going back to those meetings, those meetings where we just gathering information. I look over, my teachers got pads out like that, like, if you take a half a piece of Ritalin and a little bit of Adderall and mix it, I said, what are you doing? You can't be writing prescriptions in this meeting. They're writing down like formulas and stuff. Just cracks me up. Any others? We got a couple more. Thank you.
His parents are divorced and he lives with a single mom.
His parents are divorced and
Lives with a single mom.
lives with a single mom. Yep. And she's gonna come right back there to you.
I guess I'm going to probably go off on a slight tangent, but saying the word at risk, I do early intervention. And in the state of Illinois, if you are already saying some of these things that we have shared, then you're auto eligible for services. Auto. I mean, like she said, let's just start donating it now.
Thank you.
I mean, but is that wrong though?
You're gonna find out. I like it.
And on that same note, it's the old, they don't belong in this class.
They don't.
They don't belong in this
Right,
class.
they don't belong in this classes. Oh my gosh. Oh. Ugh.
But like playing off what she said, but you have to look more at other things besides the academics. My son went through the screening when he was 3. They told me he was too smart to be at risk, but he was ADHD and he needed the social, emotional, and the pragmatic, and they said no.
Wow.
Just their parents or their sibling was the same way.
That's right. Apple doesn't fall far. You had the brother. Right? They got another child coming? Oh my God. There's a kindergartner. Kindergartner's like, yeah, I'm coming. I'm next.
The district that I'm seeing in, as soon as you check that box that says another language is spoken in a home, is a lot of times considered, they go right into that at risk.
Yes, like it happens as soon as you say another language is spoken at home. Like we're the only people left on earth to think American's the only language to speak. Yes. Oh my goodness. So accurate. Well done. Well done. All of the things, you hit on all of them. All the stuff I always hear. And so now, I'm going to give you another 2 minutes, 30 seconds. And what we're going to pretend now is that Nicole, who's kind of the kid you thought of, is now wearing a hat that says underserved. Underserved. And the reason I use Nicole is I don't want you to think of a new group of students for this next list, because I want you to come up with a list of statements you hear, questions and concerns regarding underserved students. But I want you to be thinking of the same students. What are some questions, statements, and concerns? Questions and statements regarding underserved students. But it's the same Nicole, different hat, different label. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Underserved, same list. Generate a list of questions regarding underserved students and go. All righty. Same process, except so I should have had you make a T-chart, but I didn't. So this is your underserved statements, questions, and concerns. So now we want to hear those. What'd you come up with for underserved?
It's not her fault. And what can we do to serve her?
Thank you. It's not her fault. What can we do to serve her? What else? Thank you. More.
I don't really have something to add because I think
I know where you're going. You're going right where she's trying to go. And no,
I'm saying I've sat in conversations where I've never had somebody sit in a conversation and refer to a kid as underserved.
What comes to mind when you hear it, though?
That it's our fault. Something needs to be provided to them. At risk is.
Yeah, stop right there. So I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this too long. Folks is one step ahead of me, but I'm coming back to you.
So I don't know if you want me to say it, but the first thing I said was at risk. It's the same, it goes back together, the underserved.
Okay, so underserved and at risk.
Something.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got some folks over here too.
It's a lack of resources and a lack of exposure for that
So what
student
we
or that
resources,
family.
exposure, thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Background knowledge.
Background knowledge, thank you.
What does the family need from us to implement things at home?
What does the family need from us to implement at home? Got one in the back, thank you. This is great. Got somebody running around, this is awesome.
I also don't really hear that term often,
Yeah.
but I did have a total shift in how I would address it, and it was immediately like, what can we do?
Yes, what can we do? Take the mic from her. Take the mic from her. Goodness, man, you guys are killing me today. That's 3 slides from now. Good stuff. Anyone else?
Needing wraparound services.
Needing wraparound services. So I've truncated this little workshop because of our time. Normally, I would have you on a big chart, do all the at-risk stuff on one side, the underserved on the other, and then I'd ask you at this point, what do you notice about the difference between the 2 lists? So just from what you've heard so far, what do you notice about the difference between the 2 lists?
The underserved, they want to help. They want to do something to make it better. Whereas at risk, they just throw them out the window.
Yes. Never heard it put that way, but you're absolutely right. For the underserved, we want to help. We want to help. It's all about helping. With the at-risk, kind of throw them out the window. Symbolically. Blame. Yes. Blame versus burden. Now, I understand why some of you interpret it as underserved as our fault, but I don't want you to see it as fault. I want you to see it as power. Because 95% of what you came up with for the at-risk side, while true, are things that are outside our control. And that's why it feels like it's them. On the underserved side, just about everything you came up with are things we can do something about. Whether at the individual teacher level, the collaborative team level, school, district, board. The underserved side keeps us in that place of hope because nothing kills problem solving faster than focusing on what you cannot control. And the reason I use Nicole is I want you to see it was the same kid, I didn't want you to come up with a new group of kids for underserved, same students, but you asked different questions. What can we do? What do the parents not have? What can we provide? As opposed to the at risk, which was they don't want it anyway, they don't care, single parent, all these things we can do nothing about. Yes?
And sometimes the underserved students, which are sometimes subcategorized as I'm so sorry. The underserved students can sometimes be categorized as the minority students or the students with the special needs that somehow become at risk.
Yes. When we don't treat them like underserved, they absolutely become that. Yes, absolutely. But again, if with time, I would have had like 2 big pieces of chart paper and would have been writing down your responses. You would see this glaring difference between what we came up with for at risk, which were, again, 95% of things we cannot do anything about. And that results in us doing charity work. And you're going to get a lot of participation trophies for charity work. People on the outside, that's when you hear, I don't see how you do it. I don't see how you do it. You're so good, come help these little heathens during the day. That's what they think. I'm telling you. Like, I detest that stuff. I do too. It's like, no, we get results. No, we're making progress. No, I'm not in here, I'm not doing charity work. And in terms of equity, what you learned this morning, here's what charity work looks like. So now I'm gonna pick on you, sister. What's your name? Angela. So let's say the barista recipe's back up on the screen, right? If Angela is behind, right? She's working below grade level. The key with equity is to accelerate. That's what you did with Starbucks. You didn't remediate at all. There was no remediation. You didn't dumb anything down. You didn't slow it down because they're low. You built these aggressive paths, several of them. So acceleration is the key, not remediation. So here's what happens. Charity work is, up there's the barista recipe, that's where she has to go. But I'm gonna meet her here, and I'm gonna put all my attention on her with no eye on where she has to go. And so I pour into her and just hope she grows some. If she grows some, that's good. That's charity work. Advocacy work is when I got one eye on Angela and one eye on that standard. Because that's gonna pace you. Haven't you noticed when I've stopped and I'm like messing with the clock in my head, which I should be able to do without signaling to you that I'm thinking about the clock? But what I'm doing is thinking about the essentials. I have enough to talk at you for 10 days straight. But there are things I must get to before 2:30. And so that's 2:45? 2:25. You see what I'm saying? So because I got one eye on where I want to take you and one eye on the student, it's going to pace you. If you're always thinking grade level or better, I don't care how far behind the kid is. Got to be thinking grade level or better. That's the difference between advocacy work and charity work. We don't want to be doing charity work. All right, so here's how we're going to finish today. I've got this, and I apologize. I'm kicking myself now for not having these videos captioned. So I apologize. That's a learning for me today, that I don't have these videos captioned. And the sound is we're trying to figure that out. But I got a 60 minutes report. Carry the 955. It's like, it's almost 30 years old. And it profiles a school in central Harlem, New York City. Socioeconomically depressed, tons of history, blah, blah, blah. And it profiles the leader at that school. I got it broken up into 3 parts. And what we're gonna do is watch part 1. I'm probably gonna give you like a minute and a half to turn and talk about what resonated with you. We'll take another minute and a half to process, roll into part 2, part 3, put a bow on this thing. Here's what I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on aspects of that school that you want to see more consistent and pervasive on your campus or campuses. That's what I want you to focus on. Here's what I don't want you to focus on. You never get people's attention more than when you say, here's what I don't want you to focus on. What I don't want you to focus on is the fact that Steve Croft is going to say, this is a public school, treat it like a private academy, kids have to apply to get in. Because at first thought, I'd be thinking, well, if I could handpick my kids, we'd have an awesome school too. And look, there are some advantages, no doubt about it. But what I'm here to tell you is culture transcends all of it. If you don't have the right culture, I don't care if you handpick the students, it's going to be the hot mess express. I've worked in schools. I worked in a school in Vegas that was so state-of-the-art, it looked like the campus of Google, parents paying high 5 figures for the kids to go to elementary school. I mean, it was incredible. But the culture was so toxic inside that I could not wait to shower it off after we were done. With all those resources. I've also worked in schools like that where the culture's on point. And I'm like, man, I don't have that kind of scratch to pay that kind of money, but I could kind of, after a day there, I can kind of see why people who have it do it. It was so great. I've worked in schools in the bowels of the hood where you get out of your car and you say a prayer over your car, like, just 4 tires be here when I come out, even when it's flat. Just, Lord, leave me 4 tires. And then you go inside the school, and sometimes it like mirrors the chaos you just, right, after you just laid hands on your car. And I've worked in schools in the bowels of the hood and led a school in the bowels of the hood where you pray over your car going in, but when you get inside, what we're building there is so great, it reminds you why you take that risk every day. And so although kids have to apply to get in, I want you to understand that the culture is what we're looking at here, all right? Okay.
At the Frederick Douglass Academy in Harlem, there are 2 Monroe Doctrines. One was authored by President James Monroe and is taught in American history class. The other one is laid down by Dr. Lorraine Monroe, the school's principal. That Monroe Doctrine is a set of strict rules and a philosophy intended to prove that a cross-section of disadvantaged kids from New York's inner city can compete in a public school with some of the best students in America.
You have a class, Mr. Nixon? What, are you on vacation?
You can find her most mornings patrolling the hallway. Dr. Lorraine Monroe delivering what she calls her death stare that can prod the most sluggish students along.
Why are you so late? Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
It's called the Frederick Douglass Academy, but you won't find any ivy growing here. It's located in central Harlem in a large, bleak public school building surrounded by wire fencing. 80% of the students are African American, 20% Latino, and 75% of them are living below the poverty level. But when they walk through the doors every morning and file past Dr. Monroe, they're no longer poor kids from disadvantaged neighborhoods. They're Frederick Douglass scholars. Things are expected of them, and anything is possible.
The kind of education that we're giving kids doesn't depend on who their folks are or where they live.
So every student here is expected to go to college?
Absolutely every single one. There are no exceptions.
And not just any college?
Not just any college, but really prestigious ones. And we have convinced our kids that they can do it.
It is a public school run like a private academy, aspiring to offer an education that rivals what some wealthy families in New York pay $15,000 a year for at the finest private schools. Students must apply to get in, and only 1 in 6 are accepted. But grades are not the most important criteria. Some test above grade level, some below, but everyone has to show potential. And 75% of the students must come from Central Harlem. When the first class graduates next spring, Dr. Monroe wants to see a quarter of the students land coveted slots at Ivy League colleges, a figure some consider optimistic. How can you realistically compete, taking kids from very poor neighborhood?
You can realistically compete because, well, part of it is my personal background. I was raised in this community, so I know what sterling education is in New York City. I know that in Central Harlem, you can learn. I left the 9th grade knowing how to read, write, think, compute, speak Spanish, and lead. I know what can happen when the teacher is sterling. I know what happens when there are standards and children are held to them.
She began her career as an English teacher, then rose through the ranks, guidance counselor, dean, principal, and finally in the late 1980s, vice chancellor of New York City schools, where she was in charge of instruction for the nation's largest school system. But in 1991, when the opportunity presented itself to start a public prep school in Harlem, she decided to return to school administration and put her theories into practice where the rubber meets the road.
Kids learn a lot of stuff that you didn't ask them to learn.
In her spare time, she teaches education to graduate students at Bank Street College in New York City and consults with school districts in more than 30 states. She is frequently called on to spread the Monroe Doctrine at teachers' conferences like this one in Orlando.
I come from teenage parents. I come from violence in the home. I come from a home split up. I come from living in a slum. I come from people who work dead-end jobs. but I went to school. I went to school. And I had people such as yourselves who said, I see something in you and will not let you go. And whenever people say, well, you know, Dr. Monroe, the mother's on crack and the father has disappeared and there's 6 children, I say, you ain't teaching them. Like,
All right, share one takeaway, something that resonated you with a neighbor. Take 1 minute. She said, you know, where a student is going doesn't depend on where their parents come from. And he said sometimes the teachers come to her and say, well, Dr. Monroe, you know, the mother's on crack and the father's disappeared and there's 6 children. And she says, you ain't teaching them. "30 seconds. I'm sorry, that's not a lot of time. All right. Give me a couple things you took from that. Heard something? Yes.
The very first thing that I noticed that I liked was the respect that she showed to every kid that came in the school. It was, good morning, Mr. Nixon.
Yes.
It wasn't, you know, she knew every kid, but then she also showed them,
Yes.
Mr., you know.
So in my book, we won't have time to go over this today, I cite research around belonging and an activity that research shows results in a 20% increase in academic engagement, a 9% decrease in disruptive behaviors, and a potential additional hour of academic engagement per day. It's in the book. I think it's page 16. You want to know what it is? And the short and sweet of it, because you're not going to have time to look into it right now. The short and sweet of it, hang on. Positive greetings at the door every day. Saying hello to a student, and if you know the name, call the kid by name. Positive greetings at the door. That's it. That's it. One more comment. Yes?
The expectation level was high.
Expectation was high. Like, high expectation is the biggest cliche in education, but kind of when she says it, I kind of believe she sounds serious.
She's accountable and present. She's building those relationships with students, and she's showing that she's going to show up every day, so they should too.
Absolutely.
She's there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. All three. Fantastic. All right. Same process. Part 2.
But Dr. Monroe accepts no excuses.
Hurry up, we have announcements already.
She tells her kids that they can't do anything about their home life. But school is a different matter. School is a place where they can change their lives.
And it's amazing when I talk to kids one-on-one and tell them, you are not responsible for your home life. You are not responsible because your parents don't love you. You're not responsible because your father disappeared. You're not responsible because your mother's on the street. You're not responsible for that. And it's almost as if they say, phew, I'm not, but you are responsible for getting here every day on time in your uniform and giving us those things that will allow us to work you into your bright future. You are responsible for that.
You really believe it doesn't make any difference who their parents are?
I don't think it makes the difference that people want it to make. I have done this work long enough to see children who come from backgrounds that are so shattered that I can't believe why the kid is still sane, who cross the threshold every morning and ace anything we put in front of them. I'm really tired of people using those descriptives as excuses as to why they don't challenge the children, why they don't ask for better behavior, why they're not more demanding.
Yo no sé. Por favor. Please. Gracias. Thank you. Mucho gusto.
Discipline the most important thing?
No. It's parallel to academic rigor. But you cannot teach in chaos. You cannot. You could be Moses, Buddha, Christ. You cannot teach if when you say I'd like your attention and you don't get it. There has to be respect for that adult in the room. And then things can happen.
I would say the answer is number 2. The water causes cooler summers and warmer winters.
Answer is number 2. Why?
School, she says, is the only predictable element in most children's lives, and that they need to know that there are places and times when they have to be quiet and not fool around, and that there are lines over which they cannot step without facing consequences. And if we don't have that in school, she says, and children go home to craziness, then we're programming them for insanity.
When you walk around the building, you see how kids respond to that kind of attention. They hunger for this kind of atmosphere.
They want structure.
They want structure. I could not run a place as well as this place is run if children didn't want to really have structure and predictability. Come over here, please.
She tells teachers that they have to try and reach every student, not just the smart ones, because you can't predict which ones will respond. She tells a story about a terror from Philadelphia who transferred into her English class.
And I'm writing on the board 2 weeks from now, book report, do first choice is your choice, and be prepared to write about it in class. And the class is bent over writing it, and the new boy from Philadelphia said, I ain't doing that. Well, the rest of the class went like, so I said, come up here. So he came up because he thought this was going to be the big moment, his big moment, like he was going to show the kids from New York how bad out of Philly he was. So I said, I want you to take this note to your counselor. Dear counselor, this is to introduce so-and-so. He doesn't want to do my... And I said it out loud. Put him in a class to do somebody else's. The kid said, please, please, please. So I didn't look up. I said, if you can be back in your seat by the time I look up, I will forget this incident.
A few years ago, she ran into that student on the streets of New York.
Monroe? I said, what are you doing now? He said, I've got my master's in social work, and I'm working with at-risk children now, trying to... So you don't know.
All right, turn and talk. Share an idea from that second clip. 1 minute. 20 seconds. All right, I'm going to invite you back. Take three responses. Hopefully these conversations continue after today, but three. Let it rip.
Okay, I like the fact that she
Maybe you have to be a
realized.
little louder,
I'm
though.
sorry. I like the fact that she realized that it takes respect. If the student does not respect you, they're not really going to learn from you. And I think that this should be implemented in CPS. It's like the kids don't respect the teachers, and they are held accountable for their behavior in CPS. And I'm saying this, and that's what I mean, and I said it.
Yeah. Yeah. But you notice kind of classroom culture she had, right? Because back in the day, like before cell phones, it'd have been like, ooh, you got. But he made that statement. It got quiet, like, bro, you on your own. Don't even look at me. No, I don't need that pen back I gave you. Keep the pen. I don't even want to know I know you. I told you not to mess with this woman.
I liked that she was.
You have to be a little louder.
I liked that she was focused on reminding the kids of what they can control, and that they're not responsible for those things at home, that they're not under their control, and just the relief that they felt.
That's right. And on the flip side, here's what you are responsible for, right? Because sometimes we do too much of the first part and we don't get to the second part. Right? 'Cause then we end up bubble wrapping the kids all day. It doesn't serve them. Great observations.
Like a current concern that I have right now that kind of goes back to something you said earlier is that whole homework issue, and that if you're greeting every kid in the morning with, oh, you didn't do your homework today, you've now lost that opportunity for the positive greeting. You're engaging in a power struggle, and you're blaming them for things that are going on at home that are out of their control.
Absolutely.
So I would like a short little snippet video of your philosophy about homework, because I need to advertise.
You know, I'm going to give you my email address. That'll push me to make a little video of it. But yeah. Yes. Thank you. All right. Part 3.
What's wrong with American education? What's going wrong with education in America?
I think that in part we've moved away from lots of things that work.
What do you mean, what worked?
Standards, sticking close to the knitting, and what one superintendent said, oh, I get it. You stick to the core and then frill around that core. That people keep trying to invent new ways to do what we know how to do.
Take a look at x minus 5 and 5 minus x. If only we could switch this to make it look like this, the ball game is over. Watch.
There are also some practical innovations. Every academy student must take a course in the fundamentals of business, and Japanese is offered as a foreign language beginning in the 7th grade.
How do you say telephone? Nikki answer.
Japanese is really a difficult language, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's very hard. It's got 2 alphabets. But they don't know it's hard. They think it's fun.
Are you sure all the stuff's right?
Yes.
Pretty good.
It's all part of Dr. Monroe's vision and her unshakable belief in the power of education and the idea that teachers can transform lives.
Why aren't there more schools like Frederick Douglass all over the country?
It's a question everybody asks, and there are other Frederick Douglasses around the country. There are not enough of them. And the reason that there are not enough of them is that the work is very hard. It's very hard to do this day after day after day. You really have to have the staff and the principal being maniacs, who don't know no, who assume nothing, who take no excuses, who come for the kids.
Let's start writing. Yes.
I used a quote from the story saying...
That's good. That's good. A quote from the story. Yes.
Dr. Monroe says there is no way to pay good teachers enough money. It's a calling, not a profession. 14, 16 hours a day if you do the job right. She supplements her school budget by raising money from corporate sponsors to send her kids to the theater and the ballet, and on trips abroad to places like South Africa, Israel, and Paris. She doesn't want them to feel disadvantaged when they finally get to college.
See, that's the added competitive edge. You got the academics going for you. But then when you go off and somebody says, well, you know, when I saw the Eiffel Tower, I said, it's funny, the day we were there, it was raining. Was it raining when you went? You've got to give kids that kind of sense that the world is theirs. They have to just be prepared to be smoothly in it.
You think that's important?
Very.
Why?
Tell me what the alternative is. What's the alternative? To read Mickey Mouse literature, to think that the boundaries of your community are the boundaries of the world, that the museums in the city don't belong to you, that that's only for other people. I don't know an alternative.
You think that somehow this changes them?
I know that does. And I'm expecting them to be leaders of the world.
All right, turn and talk one last time. 1996. All righty. We have final three responses, reactions.
When she talked about why they are changing,
Do me a favor, talk to
when
the
she
gentleman.
talked about them changing the standards, why they keep reinventing the wheel, and an example is trying to help my granddaughter do her math with this new division that I didn't learn.
Right.
I had to look it up on Khan Academy. I don't know.
Right.
Why change it? It was working before.
It was working before, and I don't, but again, back to this morning, like I want that to get solved at school. Right? I don't want you on Khan Academy, ultimately, but you're right. We reinvent things, yes. Yes.
She mentioned that the kids don't think that Japanese is hard because no one's told them that it's hard. And here we are as educators sometimes I don't know if you can do that.
That's right. That's right.
Instead of here's how you can get there.
That's right. That's right. Take the swing. Take the swing. They'll follow what we tell them.
I love the point that she made about them having that world experience too, because I do see that with a lot of my students. I just had a conversation with a student on Friday, and he didn't know what Taste Chicago was. He had never been to a street festival, never. When I even showed him pictures, I go, I just thought he just didn't understand what I meant. I showed him pictures. He grew up in Chicago, never even been anywhere where there was any street festival where you could get food on the, and he's looking at me I never saw that. I'm showing him pictures. So if he hasn't seen that, what does he see? And then I just feel like that in such a bigger global way, but giving them that opportunity to see things that when they do go out into that college and beyond, and those people with these elite people that they're competing against and can have those conversations, it can only bring so much, not just learning, but that confidence and everything that goes along with it, which I think is awesome.
That's right. I mean, I was blown away when I first saw this, and she's sending kids to Israel and South Africa. And I was like, okay, I can't do that yet, but I got kids who hadn't seen the Atlanta skyline. And then I've gone places in the greater, Chicago area where the kids have never seen the lake. And I worked in San Luis Obispo, California, a couple of weeks ago. This is 2 blocks from the beach. And the kids have never seen the beach. Never seen the beach. Yes.
I wanted to say that, a lot of kids they're the product of their environment.
That's right.
But when we take them and meet them where they are, then it's our responsibility to plant a seed. And that's what that principal is doing. She's planting seeds for them to grow, for their expectation to be, just because you're a product of your environment doesn't mean you have to become that. Children don't become things that they don't see or be exposed to.
That's right. She expanded their vision. Right? So now you can become a product of the interpretation of your environment. Right? That's the whole fable about the dad who lived on the wrong side of the tracks all his life, always hustling, always committing crimes, always into illicit activities, had 2 sons. One son followed his exact tracks, ended up behind bars, and they asked the son, why do you think this happened to you? He was like, well, look who raised me. The other one became a physician. And they asked him, well, how did you become a physician? He's like, well, look who raised me. It's about the interpretation of our environment. Last thing. So we're going to finish with this clip. I love it because it's nice that Dr. Monroe happened to be from Harlem, kind of gives you some built-in credibility, which is awesome, but it's not always the case. And so this last scene depicts a teacher based on a true story who came from like the other end of the socioeconomic spectrum and had real challenges connecting with students, but eventually found a way through journal writing. And so we will end with this.
Miss G, can I read something from my diary?
That'd be great.
Who's he?
Man, he's been with us since freshman year, fool.
What's his name?
The summer was the worst summer in my short 14 years of life. It all started with a phone call. My mother was crying and begging, asking for more time, as if she were gasping for her last breath of air. She held me as tight as she could and cried. Her tears hit my shirt like bullets and told me we were being evicted. She kept apologizing to me. I thought I have no home. I should have asked for something less expensive at Christmas. On the morning of the eviction, a hard knock on the door woke me up. The sheriff was there to do his job. I looked up at the sky, waiting for something to happen. My mother has no family to lean on, no money coming in. Why bother coming to school or getting good grades if I'm homeless? The bus stops in front of the school. I feel like throwing up. I'm wearing clothes from last year, some old shoes and no new haircut. I kept thinking I'd get laughed at. Instead, I'm greeted by a couple of friends who were in my English class last year. And it hits me, Mrs. Gerwell, my crazy English teacher from last year, is the only person that made me think of hope. Talking with friends about last year's English and our trips, I began to feel better. I received my schedule and the first teacher is Mrs. Gerwell in room 203. I walk into the room and feel as though all the problems in life are not so important anymore. I am home.
Yes, you are.
Hey, oh wow. That hit you where you live? Good. I want to honor time, and I really appreciate your time, attention, your level of engagement, your sacrifice in attending this workshop today. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. That's my contact information. Again, the QR code will take you to everything I do. If you've got something time sensitive that you want to reach out to me about, email me. I'm old school like that. I got all the TMs and BMs and tick locks and stuff like that, but I don't see those messages quickly. I don't. But I got a great assistant, and email me. And if I can help you, if I got an answer, I'll give it to you. And if I don't, I can probably find it, because I know a lot of people. I'm connected. At 30 years, I'm connected, man. So go back, make magic, focus on what you control, especially in the midst of the chaos. Teach Timmy, don't teach subgroups, right? And make equity actionable. Find something that every kid has to do, and then get with a couple of colleagues and just play this game. Like, we're not gonna stop till every kid has it. And if we don't have the answers, we'll find it. And I thank you again.